I stood in the dimly lit room, the air thick with the scent of lilies and sorrow. The wake of Harold, my father-in-law, was more a display of pretense than a tribute to his life. My husband Alex clasped my hand tightly, his eyes a well of unshed tears. Vivian, Alex's mother, approached us with a thinly veiled sneer. "Elaine, Alex," she began, her voice dripping with feigned sympathy. "This is a family matter. Outsiders like Elaine should keep their distance." I felt a sting in her words. 3 years of marriage to Alex, and still I was an outsider. Greg and Nora, Alex's siblings, stood behind Vivian, their expressions echoing her disdain. "What are you saying, Mother?" Alex's voice trembled. "Elaine is family." "Family?" Vivian scoffed. "A family doesn't scheme for inheritance. We all know Harold left behind a fortune. 2 million, wasn't it?" I bit back my anger. We never cared about the money. It was always about Harold, his kind smile, his gentle words of encouragement. "Money? That's all you care about?" Alex's words were barely a whisper, but they cut through the tension like a knife. Greg chimed in, his tone laced with contempt. "Come on, Alex. Don't play the saint. We all know why she's here." Nora added with a smirk. "Yeah. Heard how cozy Elaine was getting with Dad? Planning to seduce your way to the inheritance?" Their accusations were like slaps to my face. Tears welled up, but I fought them back. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "Enough!" Alex's outburst silenced the room. "We don't want your money. All we wanted was to say goodbye to a man we loved." Vivian's eyes narrowed, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Goodbye to a man you loved? Elaine, dear, were you in love with my husband?" The room spun. Their cruel words, their unjust accusations, it was unbearable. I turned to Alex, my heart breaking for him. His family's true colors were laid bare, their greed and malice exposed. "Let's leave, Alex," I whispered, pulling him away. "We don't belong here." As we walked away, Vivian's mocking voice followed us. "Run away, Elaine. Remember, outsiders have no place here." Outside, the cold night air felt like a balm. Alex wrapped his arm around me, his body trembling with suppressed sobs. "I'm so sorry, Elaine," he muttered. "I never wanted you to be hurt like this." I hugged him, feeling his pain, our shared grief. "It's not your fault, Alex. We did everything for Harold, not for them." We stood there, under the starless sky, united in our sorrow and betrayal. The pain of loss was deep, but deeper still was the wound inflicted by his own family. As we drove back home, a silent resolve settled between us. We would not let Vivian and her children's venom taint our memories of Harold. We would find a way to honor him, away from the shadows of greed and lies. The chapter closes as Elaine and Alex leave the wake, their hearts heavy, but determined to seek justice in their own way, setting the stage for the unfolding drama and revenge. The clock in our living room struck midnight as Alex and I sat in silence, the events of the wake replaying in our minds. I could see the hurt in Alex's eyes, a pain that went deeper than tonight's insults. "Remember when we first met, Elaine?" Alex's voice broke the silence. "At that college art show. You were so passionate about your photography." I smiled, recalling our simpler days. "And you lost in your sketches. We were worlds apart from all this," I gestured vaguely, encompassing the current turmoil. Alex leaned back, his gaze distant. "I never told you the whole story about my family, did I? About why I was always so distant from them." I reached for his hand, encouraging him to continue. This was a story I knew only in fragments. My mother, Vivian, always favored Greg and Nora. They could do no wrong in her eyes. Alex began, his voice laced with a bitterness I rarely heard from him. "I was always the afterthought, the mistake." I squeezed his hand, feeling his old wounds reopen. "When I was a kid, Vivian never came to my school events. Greg and Nora got all the new clothes, the latest gadgets. I got their hand-me-downs if I was lucky." His words painted a picture of neglect, of a childhood shadowed by the constant reminder that he was less valued. "Despite all that, Dad, Harold was different. He tried, in his own way. He wasn't around much, but he made sure to be there when it mattered. He was the one who encouraged me to pursue art." I nodded, understanding the depth of his bond with Harold, despite the latter's limited presence. "When it was time for university, Vivian told me to get a job. No money for education," she said. "I managed with scholarships and loans. But it was never about the money, Elaine. It was about being seen, being acknowledged." His story revealed not just neglect, but a deep-seated desire for acceptance, something his family never gave him. When we decided to get married, I saw how they treated you. The snide comments, the disrespect. It hurt, Elaine, but I thought we could stay away, build our own world. I remembered those early encounters, the thinly veiled jabs, the dismissal of our relationship. It was clear now, this disdain wasn't new. It was a pattern long established in Alex's life. But Harold's illness changed everything, Alex continued. We couldn't just stand by. And you, Elaine, you were there for him more than anyone. A tear slipped down my cheek as I remembered Harold's grateful smiles, his warm thanks every time we visited. They think we're after the money, Alex said, his voice hardening. But they're the ones obsessed with it. They never cared for Dad, only for what he had. I nodded, feeling a surge of anger. Their greed, their cruel accusations, it was all a reflection of their own twisted desires. We'll find a way to set this right, Alex, I said firmly. For Harold, for us, we won't let them tarnish his memory. Alex looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and determination. We'll do it together, Elaine. We'll make sure they get what they deserve. As we sat there, united in our resolve, the path ahead was clear. We would fight back, not with their weapons of greed and deceit, but with the truth and the strength of our bond. The sterile smell of the hospital lingered in the air as Alex and I walked through the quiet corridors. Each step felt heavy, a reminder of the countless times we had made this journey to visit Harold. As we entered his room, the sight of Harold lying frail and pale on the hospital bed never failed to stir a deep sadness in me. Despite his condition, his eyes lit up when he saw us. Elaine, Alex, my dear ones. Harold's voice was weak but filled with warmth. We approached his bedside, and I took his hand gently, noticing how it trembled slightly. "How are you feeling today, Dad?" Alex asked, concern etching his features. "Just being here with you both is a comfort," Harold replied, squeezing my hand. I couldn't help but think of Vivian, Greg, and Nora. Their absence in these crucial moments spoke volumes of their indifference. "Dad, we brought you some of your favorite music," I said, trying to bring some cheer into the room. "Let's listen together." As the soft melodies filled the room, I saw a tear roll down Harold's cheek. It was moments like these that made me realize the depth of his loneliness, exacerbated by his family's neglect. The door suddenly burst open, and in came Vivian, Greg, and Nora, their arrival like a storm disrupting the calm. "Harold, we're here!" "Oh, how terrible you look!" Vivian exclaimed, her tone lacking genuine concern. I felt Harold's grip on my hand tighten, a silent plea for strength. "Mother, we were just spending some quiet time with Dad," Alex said, his voice strained. Greg scoffed, looking around the room with disinterest. "Quiet time? More like making sure he remembers you in his will." Nora joined in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Elaine, still playing the devoted daughter-in-law, hoping to get a bigger piece of the pie?" Their words were like daggers, but I remained composed, not wanting to upset Harold. "We're here because we care for Dad, not for his money," I said firmly, meeting their accusing eyes. Vivian snorted. "Care? You're nothing but gold diggers. Harold, don't trust them." Harold, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Enough. Elaine and Alex have been my only comfort in these trying times. They are my family." His declaration was a blow to Vivian and her children. Their faces contorted in anger and disbelief. "You'll regret this, Harold," Vivian hissed, storming out of the room with Greg and Nora following her. Once they were gone, a heavy silence fell. Harold looked exhausted, the encounter having drained his remaining strength. "Elaine, Alex, I'm sorry you have to endure this," Harold whispered. "We're here for you, Dad, always," Alex replied, his voice filled with unwavering loyalty. As we left the hospital that evening, a resolute anger settled in my heart. Vivian and her children's greed and cruelty knew no bounds. But Alex and I were determined to stand against them, to protect Harold and honor his wishes. The injustice inflicted upon us, upon Harold, would not go unanswered. We were ready to fight back, to ensure that the true colors of our adversaries were brought to light. The days following Harold's funeral were a blur of grief and disbelief. Alex and I tried to find solace in each other, but the shadow of his family's callousness loomed over us. It was on a bleak Tuesday morning when the unexpected happened. A knock at our door revealed a stern-looking man in a suit, introducing himself as Mr. Simmons, Harold's attorney. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I'm here regarding Harold's last will and testament," Mr. Simmons announced, his tone formal yet sympathetic. Alex and I exchanged a look of surprise. We were unaware Harold had made a will. "Please come in," I said, leading him to the living room. As Mr. Simmons unfolded the documents, the anticipation in the room was palpable. Harold made it clear in his will that his entire estate, including the $2 million inheritance, is to be left to you, Alex, and Elaine, Mr. Simmons stated. The revelation hit us like a bolt of lightning. All this time, Harold had planned to leave everything to us. "But why us?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Harold felt that you two were the only ones who genuinely cared for him in his final years. He was deeply hurt by the rest of the family's indifference and greed, Mr. Simmons explained. The truth of Harold's feelings towards his family, now laid bare, was both a validation and a burden. We were honored by his trust, yet saddened by the extent of his loneliness and pain. "What about Vivian, Greg, and Nora?" I asked, my mind racing with the implications of this revelation. Harold explicitly disinherited them. "They are not to receive anything from the estate," Mr. Simmons replied, his tone indicating finality. I could almost hear Vivian's outraged scream, Greg's indignant protests, Nora's incredulous gasps. The news would hit them like a tidal wave, shattering their illusions of entitlement. "This will undoubtedly cause a stir," Alex said, a hint of worry in his eyes. "Yes, but Harold's wishes are legally binding. I will handle any disputes that may arise," Mr. Simmons assured us, his confidence somewhat easing our concerns. After Mr. Simmons left, Alex and I sat in silence, absorbing the gravity of the situation. Harold had entrusted us with his legacy, a clear message to his family that their behavior was inexcusable. The sense of justice was bittersweet. While we felt vindicated, it pained us to think of Harold's final days clouded by such decisions. "We need to prepare, Elaine," Alex said, determination in his voice. "Vivian and her children won't take this lightly. We must stand our ground." I nodded, feeling a mix of resolve and apprehension. "We'll do this together for Harold," I said, my voice steady. As we braced ourselves for the inevitable storm, I couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. The revelation of Harold's will was not just a testament to his love for us, but also a catalyst for the impending battle with his family. The confrontation was inevitable. Just days after learning of Harold's will, Vivian, Greg, and Nora appeared at our doorstep, their faces twisted in anger and disbelief. "You can't possibly think you're keeping all of Harold's money," Vivian spat as soon as we opened the door. Her words were like venom, but Alex and I stood firm, united in our resolve. "Harold made his wishes clear," Alex said calmly. "He left everything to us because we were the only ones who truly cared for him." Greg stepped forward, his eyes burning with rage. "You manipulated him. This is fraud." I felt a surge of anger at their accusations. "Manipulating? That's rich coming from you. You barely visited him, and now you claim rights to his estate?" Nora's voice was shrill with fury. "We're his real family, not some gold-digging wife and the son he barely tolerated." The cruelty in her words stung, but I refused to let it show. "That's where you're wrong," I countered. "Family isn't just about blood, it's about who's there in times of need, and you were all conspicuously absent." Vivian's face contorted in a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't do this to us. We deserve that inheritance." "It's not about what you think you deserve," Alex said, his voice steady. "It's about honoring Dad's wishes. He saw through your greed and selfishness." "You'll regret this," Greg threatened, stepping closer. "We won't let you get away with stealing our inheritance." I felt Alex's hand tighten around mine, a silent pledge of support. "This isn't theft, it's justice," I declared, meeting their hostile gazes head-on. "You neglected Harold, and now you're paying the price." Vivian's expression shifted to one of begrudging realization. "So, this is how it is. You've turned him against us, and now you're taking everything." "No, Vivian," Alex said, a hint of sadness in his voice. "You did this to yourselves. Your actions, your choices led to this moment." The air was thick with tension, the unsaid words hanging heavy between us. "Leave, now," I said firmly. "You have no claim here, not anymore." With one last glare, Vivian, Greg, and Nora turned and left, their departure leaving a trail of bitterness and resentment. Closing the door behind them, Alex and I let out a collective sigh. The battle lines were drawn, the fight for justice was just beginning. But we were ready, armed with the truth and the strength of our conviction. "We did the right thing, Elaine," Alex said, wrapping his arm around me. I nodded, feeling a sense of righteous vindication mixed with sorrow. We did for Harold. As we stood in the silence of our home, we knew this was far from over. But whatever lay ahead, we would face it together, standing tall against the greed and deceit that sought to overshadow Harold's final wishes. The aftermath of the confrontation left a charged atmosphere in our home. Alex and I knew this was just the beginning of a longer battle against Vivian, Greg, and Nora's greed. We were having dinner when the phone rang. Alex answered, and I could immediately tell from his tone that it was them again. "You can't possibly think we'll just walk away from this," Vivian's voice, shrill and agitated, echoed from the speaker. Alex put her on speakerphone, and I braced myself for another round of accusations. "We've seen lawyers, Alex. They say we have a case. You'll be hearing from us," Greg's voice threatened. I exchanged a look with Alex. "Let them try," I whispered. Alex spoke into the phone, his voice firm. "You heard, Mr. Simmons. Dad's will is clear and legally binding. You were disinherited for a reason." "You think you're so smart, but we'll see who gets the last laugh," Nora chimed in, her voice dripping with malice. "It's not about winning or losing," I said, my voice steady as I took the phone from Alex. "It's about what's right. Harold knew the truth about all of you." There was a pause, and then Vivian's voice returned, colder and more calculating. "You think you know everything, Elaine? We're his blood. That has to count for something." "It counted for nothing when you ignored him in his final years," I countered. "You'll regret this. We won't let you get away with it." Greg's voice was a mix of anger and desperation. "As far as we're concerned, this matter is closed," Alex said, ending the call. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation heavy on our shoulders. "They won't give up easily," I said, more to myself than Alex. "But we have the truth on our side," Alex replied, reaching for my hand. "Dad wanted us to have this. We'll honor his wishes, no matter what they throw at us." I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Harold's final act had been one of love and trust towards us, and we would defend it with everything we had. Over the next few days, we prepared for the legal battle that loomed ahead. We gathered documents, spoke to Mr. Simmons, and fortified ourselves for the fight. Then, one evening, as we reviewed our strategy, the doorbell rang. Standing on our doorstep were Vivian, Greg, and Nora, their faces a mix of anger and defeat. "We want to talk," Vivian said, her voice lacking its usual confidence. "We have nothing to discuss," Alex replied, his stance unwavering. "Just hear us out," Nora pleaded, a rare note of sincerity in her voice. Reluctantly, we let them in. They sat across from us, their body language deflated. "We've been to several lawyers. They all say the same thing. The will is ironclad," Vivian admitted, her eyes avoiding ours. "So what do you want?" I asked, my tone cautious. We're sorry," Greg said, the words seeming to pain him. "We were wrong about Harold, about you." I looked at Alex, seeing the skepticism in his eyes mirrored in mine. "Sorry doesn't change what you did, what you said," Alex said coldly. "We know," Nora added, her voice quivering, "but we're family. Can't we find a way to move past this?" Alex and I exchanged a look, the decision clear between us. "There's no moving past this," I said firmly. "You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." They left soon after, their departure marked by a heavy silence. Alex and I sat back down, the finality of the situation sinking in. "We did the right thing," Alex said after a moment, his voice resolute. "We did," I agreed, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "For Harold and for us." The battle was over, but the scars remained. We had stood our ground, defended Harold's legacy, and in doing so, had closed the door on a part of our lives that was filled with greed and betrayal. Months had passed since we had last seen Vivian, Greg, and Nora. The legal battle, as predicted, never materialized. Their threats had been nothing but hollow words, a final attempt to intimidate us. One evening, as Alex and I sat on our porch, enjoying the peaceful twilight, he broke the silence with a reflective tone. "Do you ever think about them?" he asked, gazing into the distance. "I try not to," I admitted. "But sometimes I wonder if they ever understood the pain they caused, not just to us, but to Harold." Alex nodded, a hint of sorrow in his eyes. "I doubt it. Their greed blinded them to everything else." The conversation drifted to other topics, but a part of my mind remained on that bitter family conflict. It was a chapter of our lives that had closed, but its echoes still lingered. A few days later, we received news that served as a stark reminder of the consequences of their actions. Through a mutual acquaintance, we learned of their downfall. Greg's business, already struggling, had collapsed under mounting debts. Nora, caught in her web of lies and deceit, faced a bitter divorce. And Vivian, abandoned by her children in her time of need, was left to grapple with her loneliness and remorse. Hearing of their misfortunes didn't bring us joy. There was no satisfaction in seeing them suffer, only a deep sense of pity and a reminder of the destructive power of greed. As we moved on with our lives, Alex and I made a conscious decision to focus on the positive. We invested Harold's inheritance wisely, ensuring his legacy would continue to support causes he believed in. We also started a small foundation in his name to help those in need, a fitting tribute to a man who had shown us so much kindness. Life had a way of coming full circle. A year after Harold's passing, we welcomed a new addition to our family, a baby boy we named Ethan. Holding him in my arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and hope. He was a new beginning, a chance to build a legacy of love and kindness, far removed from the shadows of greed and betrayal. As Ethan grew, we often told him stories of his grandfather Harold, ensuring his memory lived on in the heart of our family. We wanted Ethan to know the values Harold stood for: kindness, compassion, and integrity. Sitting on the porch one evening, watching Ethan play in the garden, Alex put his arm around me. "We made it through the storm," he said, a note of contentment in his voice. "We did," I replied, leaning into him. "And we built something beautiful from it." The journey had been fraught with pain and conflict, but it had led us to a place of peace and understanding. We had turned the bitterness of the past into a future filled with love and hope. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I realized that this was what Harold had wanted for us: a life of happiness, free from the toxic grasp of greed. And in that moment, I knew we had truly honored his legacy.
Where did that go? Where did it disappear to? What's going on? Well, while I was pondering the situation, my husband received a demotion at work because he seemed to be making more mistakes. He had never been particularly dedicated to his job, so the demotion didn't come as much of a surprise to him. However, his memory lapses became increasingly frequent, prompting us to visit the hospital for a checkup. Music. I initially thought it might be depression, but the diagnosis turned out to be early-onset Alzheimer's. In simple terms, he was dealing with dementia. I had heard that even young individuals could develop the condition, but I was still shocked to learn my husband had it. My name is Katie Smith. 5 years have passed since then. I'm now 50 years old, and my husband is 54. We didn't have children, so I continued working. My parents have passed away, but my husband's parents are still alive and well. They live in the countryside, not far from us. His parents are very kind, and when my husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they offered to take him in and suggested I consider divorce. Music. However, my husband, who had always disliked living in the country, firmly opposed the idea. I chose not to pursue divorce solely because of his illness. We've been married for nearly 20 years, united by love, and not just by the vows of sickness and health. It didn't seem right to abandon him simply because he had fallen ill. Though my husband's memory lapses have increased, he can still lead a relatively normal life. Perhaps the medication he takes to manage the disease is working. It's not too bad because he can still function in many aspects of daily life, and he recognizes me. Although he occasionally doesn't respond to me, when he does, he behaves much like any other person. However, when I ask him specific questions, he often says he doesn't remember or isn't sure. His mistakes at work became more frequent, and he would sometimes become emotional when he struggled with paperwork. He once told me, "I'm thinking of leaving the company. Would you support me if I quit?" Unable to refuse my worried husband, I supported his decision, and he eventually left the company. He now spends most of his time at home, but he doesn't exhibit any problematic behavior while he's there. Sometimes he leaves things out or makes a mess in the kitchen. But since he isn't causing harm to others, it's within an acceptable range of behavior. My husband has been home ever since he left his job. I spoke with the doctor about arranging for someone to watch over him while I'm at work. The doctor reassured me that he still has the ability to recognize danger, so there's no immediate need for extra care. He mentioned that we would revisit the situation as the disease progresses. For now, the doctor advised me to remind my husband to lock the door when he goes out and to avoid going out alone. I was somewhat worried about whether he would be okay with these instructions, but he repeatedly insisted that he was fine being on his own and sometimes grew frustrated when I pressed the matter. "Stop nagging. I'm sick. You're just making me more confused with all this unnecessary talk. Show me some compassion." In the end, I had to give him some space because I couldn't manage his outbursts. 5 years before my husband was diagnosed at 40, I had been promoted to section manager. My salary increased, so even though my husband left his job, we didn't face any immediate financial strain. Since we don't have children, we had managed to save a good amount over the years, providing us with a safety net when needed. Our savings remain untouched, and I'm grateful to still be working. I hope life will continue to be as normal as possible. However, there's one issue that's been troubling me lately. Items around the house often go missing. The missing items include my beloved designer bags, recently purchased shoes and clothes, and other costly possessions. I had saved up to treat myself to these items as rewards. I've searched everywhere, thinking I might have misplaced them, but I can't seem to find them. When I asked my husband about it, he could only say, "I don't know." I inquired further, "Did you remember taking them anywhere?" His response remained the same, "No, I don't remember." My husband's responses are becoming increasingly repetitive. I wonder if his illness has advanced to the point where he doesn't even recall taking the missing items out of the house. When I return from work and ask about his day, his frequent reply is, "I can't remember." The doctor explained that the progression of the disease can vary, sometimes slow and other times rapid. Yet I couldn't shake the worry that it might be accelerating. If this were the case, leaving him alone while I'm at work would become a concern. The thought of him wandering off alone is unsettling. I wouldn't be able to manage his care on my own if he were to stray. My anxiety about my husband's well-being led me to install surveillance cameras in the house without informing him. What if he starts wandering and causing trouble for others? I'd be devastated if that were to occur. If such a situation arose, I'd have to confront it head-on. A week later, while my husband slept, I nervously reviewed the footage captured by the camera. What I witnessed was beyond anything I had anticipated, leaving me utterly astonished. Unbeknownst to me, my husband was bringing another woman into our home. For the past 5 years, I hadn't been able to engage in meaningful conversation with him. His responses to my questions were always vague, yet in the video he conversed with ease, free of any barriers. It was difficult to reconcile this with his dementia diagnosis. Furthermore, I was taken aback when I recognized the woman accompanying him. She was none other than the doctor who had diagnosed my husband with dementia. The very hospital where we had sought medical advice was affiliated with his former workplace. Was this some kind of twisted joke between my husband and the female doctor? Or could the dementia diagnosis be entirely fabricated? Are you sure she hasn't discovered the truth? Not in the slightest. Dementia is a handy excuse. I don't have to work, and I can easily claim I don't remember when it suits me. What a terrible man you are. Your wife is out working while you stay at home and bring your mistress here. You were the one who suggested it. When I told you I was tired of my job and wanted to leave, you said it was a good idea. I didn't think it would work so smoothly. The woman crossed her legs, laughing with my husband as they spoke. She's so full of herself. I'm not sure if she got promoted to section chief or something, but her salary keeps going up. She's definitely earning more than me and moving ahead. She probably thinks she's better than me, but thanks to her, we can enjoy moments like this. She's basically our ATM, so she needs to keep working hard. Didn't you say she's just your housekeeper now? Yep, she's both my housekeeper and ATM. I felt my mind go blank as the words on the screen echoed in my head. Oh, and Hannah, don't take too many things out of the house because my wife has noticed items missing. She suggested you take things out and just pretend they're gone. Well, I can always say I forgot due to my condition. Exactly. This illness is the perfect cover. Now I can coast through life without having to work anymore. So that's the reality of it. What have I been doing all this time, silently supporting him? For 5 years, I poured my energy into working tirelessly and managing the household, unaware of the truth. I felt foolish, like all my strength had been sapped from my body. Suddenly, uncontrollable laughter erupted from within me. I wondered if I was losing my mind. That's how overwhelmed I was. Anger, sadness, frustration, and despair all mingling together. And the despair didn't stop there. When I checked my bank account, I found it drained to zero. Every penny I'd saved since our marriage had vanished. I felt utterly adrift. It felt like the world had ended. As the morning light seeped in, I found myself numb. My husband greeted the day with a carefree expression, and seeing him stirred a rage within my hollowed soul. "Where's breakfast?" I wanted to grab him by the collar and unleash every ounce of fury, but I managed to hold myself back. My husband still had no clue that I knew the truth. I struggled with the urge to confront him and demand an apology on the spot. But I was unsure of how to proceed. Even if I lashed out at him, I knew he would simply smile and say, "You found out, didn't you? What are your plans for today? What's going on? You've never asked me that before. I'm just curious about what you do at home all day. I wish I could work like you, but with my condition, I just end up causing trouble for others. I'm envious of your ability to work." I couldn't believe how brazen his words were. Given the evidence of his infidelity, I knew I could use it as grounds for seeking alimony and a divorce. But reflecting on the last 5 years brought me to tears. People who act so shamelessly often try to downplay their actions with excuses and implausible explanations. A few days passed as I contemplated my next steps. Just seeing my husband made me feel sick, but I held my composure. The camera remained in place. Unaware that I knew the truth, my husband continued bringing the doctor into our home while I was away. "Hey, did anyone come by today? I thought I smelled someone else." He responded, "Well, someone might have come by, but I don't really remember. Maybe it was a salesperson." "So how are you feeling? You seem to be doing better lately. Is the treatment helping?" "I don't think so. I feel like I've been getting more forgetful. The doctor told me the disease can be slowed down, but it can't be cured." "That's right. That doctor was quite attractive, wasn't she?" "Was she?" I can't seem to recall her face. I was almost impressed by how convincingly he kept up his act for so long. I couldn't just sit idly by, so I decided to visit my in-laws with a recorded video, without telling my husband. They have always been kind and thoughtful toward me, but they are my husband's parents, so I worried they might take his side. "Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry for reaching out unexpectedly, but I have something important to discuss with you." "What's wrong? You look so worn out. What happened?" "Come on in. Are you hungry? I'll fix you something warm to eat." My mother-in-law's words almost brought me to tears. It was a relief to realize I had nothing to worry about. When my in-laws saw the video of my husband's affair with the female doctor, they immediately knelt down and apologized. "Our foolish son. I'm so sorry, Katie. I truly apologize." Rather than blaming me, they cried and held my hands, causing me to cry as well. It felt as though all the tension I'd been holding onto melted away in that moment. While my anger at my husband remained, I was deeply moved to know I had their support. Something else that made me happy was a surprise offer for a promotion to a department head position. It was gratifying to know my hard work was being recognized. I felt reassured that I had a place where my efforts were valued. "Hey, Katie, are you listening to me?" "Huh? Oh, sorry, I got lost in my thoughts for a moment." I had been contemplating how to best punish my husband and had gotten caught up in my thoughts. "It's not funny if you both end up with dementia." His words sparked an idea in my mind. "Would you take care of me if I did end up with dementia?" "Forget it. I've got enough on my plate without taking care of you too." My husband looked at me in shock at my response. Since then, I've been trying to echo more of his previous words each day to make the scenario seem more convincing. Hey, what was I doing just now? I've been making so many mistakes at work lately. I seem to be forgetting things. I forgot how to use the washing machine and how to cook rice. My husband grew increasingly anxious. "You're still working, but I'm grateful you're here." One day, I came home from work to find my husband gone. He left behind completed divorce papers and a note. "I don't want to burden you any further, so I've decided to divorce you. Please don't try to find me, Ken." I knew he left because he believed I might have dementia. Moreover, I knew exactly where he had gone. My husband had rented an apartment to continue his relationship with a female doctor, as revealed in the hidden video. He told her, "I'm getting a divorce. I can't be bothered taking care of her if she ends up with dementia. I've moved my savings to another account so I won't need to worry about my finances for a while." he said, laughing. He also provided her with his new apartment's location. I learned where she lived from their conversation, so I headed to her neighborhood. The female doctor was married and lived in a suburban home with her family. I immediately filed the divorce papers and sent an invoice for alimony and property division to my husband's newly rented apartment. Naturally, I also sent the female doctor a bill for alimony via certified mail. It seemed my husband received it, as he called me right away. What on earth is this, alimony? Yes, it's for your infidelity. What? Oh right, I sent it to that lady doctor as well. I imagine her husband has learned about it by now, and they must be facing difficulties. Along with the invoice I sent to the female doctor, I also forwarded the hidden camera footage to my husband. Her husband had the right to know what had happened. You sneaky, how did you find out? To be honest, I was surprised too. I couldn't believe it was all a lie. I thought you were losing your mind. You know I was just imitating you. You're so easy to fool, aren't you? My husband chose to ignore his actions and began shouting at me. He accused me, you think I'm being dishonest? You have the nerve to be angry after pretending to have dementia for 5 years and living off my income. You even brought another woman into the house. Do you think that's acceptable? It seemed my husband never imagined that I knew everything. Then he stammered, but what do you mean by property division? I don't own anything. We have your savings. Oh, I already spent it all. Not a penny left. I was amazed he had come this far and was still lying. I told him I had planted a camera in her house and that I had heard every word he told the female doctor. I informed him I had the footage as evidence. I have irrefutable proof. When I informed him that his parents were aware of the situation and were furious, he erupted into another fit of yelling, demanding, "How dare you involve them in this?" He seemed oblivious to the fact that he had no right to shout at me now. Thankfully, his incessant ranting spared me the expense of hiring a private investigator. Upon hearing this, my husband fell silent for a moment, seemingly at a loss for words, before abruptly ending the call. The following month, I received another unexpected call. What's going on? What do you mean? I went to the apartment and they said it had already been canceled. Which apartment? The one we used to live in, obviously. I couldn't help but think to myself that he was the one who initiated the divorce proceedings, so I hadn't anticipated his return. When I told him that I had canceled the lease immediately after he left, he became angry and demanded to know why I hadn't informed him of my actions. I explained that, as he was unemployed, he could no longer be the tenant on the apartment lease. So when he quit his job, I changed the lease to my name. This gave me control over when to terminate the lease and decide where to move next. I ended up purchasing a condo, which I now call home. You bought it? Yes, using the alimony from you and your mistress, along with the savings I recovered. It's a small place, but it's my own haven. Really? Yes, so you won't be coming over. He seemed surprised by my response. You have a girlfriend, don't you? I already broke up with her. Her husband found out she was cheating and divorced her. She's been blamed at work for making a diagnostic error and is being sued by a patient. Both her husband and you are suing her for alimony, leaving her in significant debt. Really? Well, I decided I want to start over with you. That way, the alimony will be canceled and I can get the money back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he really think I would take him back? He was suggesting that we reconcile, implying that the alimony being pursued by her husband could be returned to me. I was almost tempted to ask him if he had lost his mind. You've got to be kidding. Why would I pay you anything? We're divorced. I never want to see you again. There's no chance I'm taking you back. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked all incoming calls from him. Apparently, my ex-husband then went to visit his parents. Little did he know that they had sold their house and moved into a retirement community. They told me he was shocked when he arrived at their house and saw it was up for sale, prompting him to reach out to them. With a lawyer handling the collection of property division and alimony payments, my ex-husband was left with little money in his pocket. Unable to secure a new job and unable to pay his rent, he was evicted from his apartment and had nowhere to go. He must have turned to his parents for help. Anticipating this, they had moved out, knowing that if he returned, they might struggle to remove him again. They told me they would have felt sorry for me if he had tried to move back in with them. I heard he now works as a live-in employee at a factory, but he's too lazy to work much, resulting in daily scoldings and even beatings from younger employees. He has reached out to his parents several times for assistance, but they have consistently refused him. Months have passed since the divorce, and I continue to stay in touch with his parents. They remain concerned for my well-being and have become like my own parents. I plan to maintain a close relationship with them, and if they ever need assistance, I'll be there for them. I've recently been promoted to department manager and my salary has gone up. I'm committed to working hard and am thoroughly enjoying my peaceful life on my own. I relish the thought of your envious face catching a glimpse, but I'm not one to revel in cruelty, so I'll let it slide. It might be rather awkward for you to witness me, so why not take shelter in the bathroom or some other secluded corner? She let out a raucous laugh through the phone, taunting me mercilessly. I hold nothing but contempt for this woman, more than anyone else in the world. No, in the entire universe. 13 years ago, she stole my husband from me. Cutting ties would be a relief, but alas, fate has tied us together as biological sisters. After she abruptly ended the call, I held the phone to my ear for a moment, suppressing a small chuckle. My name is Ruth, a 37-year-old divorcee. My marriage crumbled within a mere 6 months, all thanks to the scheming actions of my own sister. I have an identical twin named Rachel. Our resemblance is uncanny, often leading even our closest friends to mistake us for one another. However, despite our similar appearances, our personalities couldn't be more different. I tend to be reserved, while Rachel is assertive and bold. I excelled in academics, while Rachel thrived in sports. Rachel has a habit of speaking her mind without filter, often criticizing even my choice of attire with remarks like, "How could you wear something so unstylish?" People will think I lack style too because we're twins. That would be dreadful. Our tumultuous relationship isn't confined to our home. Rachel has a knack for stirring up trouble wherever she goes. During our school days, I frequently found myself harassed by girls from other schools because of her antics. "Hey, stop getting on my boyfriend," she would shout, even when I had no idea who these girls were. "Not again, Rachel," I would sigh in exasperation. Rachel's penchant for snatching away anyone she fancied, regardless of their relationship status, only added fuel to the fire. While I blame the men too, Rachel's actions are particularly egregious. What's worse, she often loses interest in these conquests as quickly as she ensnares them, sometimes ending relationships in as little as a week. Rachel, you need to cease this foolishness. Have you ever considered the feelings of these other girls? And what about me? I'm suffering too, I once pleaded with her. Her response was dismissive, claiming that the jealousy of unattractive women was terrifying. As if her interference in my romantic life wasn't enough, she even had the audacity to belittle my boyfriend John. This man John is the same despicable ex-husband who callously discarded me 13 years ago. We became close while attending the same tutoring center, his quiet demeanor providing me solace in turbulent times. After graduating from the same university, we decided to tie the knot. Little did I know, just 6 months into our marriage, John would present me with divorce papers, uttering the words, "Please divorce me." I reached my breaking point, and I'm sure you know precisely why. Seated next to him was my sister, Rachel, her face smug with satisfaction. Taken aback, I stammered, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? I don't remember." Before I could finish, John slammed his fist on the desk, his voice booming, "Really? How dare you? You've been cheating on me. Can you still deny it after seeing this?" He thrust several pictures onto the desk, capturing a man and a woman entering a hotel together. To my shock, the images portrayed my sister, Rachel, entering a hotel with a man I didn't recognize. I couldn't comprehend what my ex-husband was accusing me of. No, this is Rachel. It's not me," I exclaimed. Rachel burst into tears, confessing, "I can't keep lying to you, John." John's expression softened as he turned to Rachel, thanking her for her honesty. I was left bewildered, unsure of what was happening. Then John directed his accusatory gaze back to me, launching into a fabricated tale that bordered on the absurd. According to him, I had been cheating on him, disguising myself as Rachel to deceive him. He had fully bought into this ludicrous narrative spun by my own sister. Furious, I responded to my ex-husband, "Are you serious, John? You've been with me for years, and you believe my sister, whom you've known for only a few months? Are you in your right mind? Are you an idiot? My calm retort seemed to infuriate him further, leaving him only capable of glaring at me in response. To my astonishment, Rachel had the audacity to flirt with John. Though you share the same face, your personalities couldn't be more different, she remarked, shamelessly attempting to charm him. You're not charming at all. Rachel always listens to my grievances with a smile. She's so patient. I couldn't wrap my head around what I was hearing. Rachel's tears seemed so artificial, and behind them, I could sense her smug satisfaction. Rachel had always been a master at playing men, ever since our school days, but her targets had shifted with her career. Now she sought men of status and wealth. John, my ex-husband, who worked for a prominent corporation and hailed from a well-off family, fit her criteria perfectly. It dawned on me that she must have set her sights on him from the moment I introduced them at our wedding. My ex-husband had been completely taken in by my sister's deception. I never imagined that the man I had been with for so long could be so easily fooled. In that moment, any lingering feelings I had for him faded rapidly. You two are despicable. Do as you please, but never show your faces in front of me again, I declared, my voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Despite the tears threatening to spill, I managed to hold them back. Without hesitation, I filled out the divorce papers and tossed them at the two of them. I knew my sister's cunning too well. She and John probably hadn't consummated their relationship yet. Pursuing compensation from them would be a daunting task, but if it meant ridding myself of their presence, I didn't care about the money anymore. Upon returning to my parents' house, their fury at my sister's actions led them to disown her. When questioned about her reaction, she brushed it off, saying, "Oh really? I don't care. But if you're having money trouble, they'll come begging to me." Okay, bye then, trivializing even her own parents' feelings. A friend later informed me that my ex-husband and my sister had tied the knot just 3 months later. I was left stunned, unable to even shed a tear. For 13 years since then, I had not laid eyes on my sister and her husband. Then, out of the blue, I received a call from an unknown number on my cell phone. Hello, Ruth. The voice on the other end greeted me, instantly recognizable. I couldn't fathom how she had the audacity to address me as Rachel. I don't know how you have the nerve to call me Rachel, I spat out, incredulous. Rachel chuckled in response, her tone lacking any semblance of remorse. Are you still holding a grudge? You're always so gloomy, Ruth. But anyway, I have a favor to ask, she continued, her words dripping with nonchalance. I'm pregnant. Oh, and the father is John, whom you love so dearly. Haha. So I thought you could be the one to break the news to our parents about their first grandchild, since they won't listen to me. Her brazenness left me speechless. What reason do you have to be so cheerful when you've been disowned? I retorted, my frustration simmering beneath the surface. But Rachel simply laughed it off, as if my words were inconsequential. How many years has it been? 13 years, I believe. You're probably still living alone in our parents' house, nursing your grudges, she taunted. Well, I'll be the one to give them a grandchild instead of you. Rachel had always possessed a knack for getting under people's skin. I'd love to witness your envy, but I'll spare you the sight. It would be too pitiful, she added, her laughter echoing through the phone. It'll be awkward if you see me, so why don't you hide in the bathroom or something? With that, she abruptly ended the call, leaving me to stew in silence. I held the phone to my ear for a moment longer, chuckling at the absurdity of it all. When the weekend arrived, I was lounging in the backyard when my phone rang again. Glancing at the screen, I saw that it was from a blocked number, undoubtedly my sister's doing. Annoyed, I answered the call, snapping, "Hey, unblock me already." Rachel's voice came through the line, unrepentant. "What's wrong with blocking someone you don't want to hear from?" "That's what call blocking is for," she retorted casually. "Oh, but maybe you don't understand because you're stupid." I couldn't help but laugh sarcastically at her arrogance. Suddenly, I heard a crash on the other end of the line, indicating her irritation. "I've come all this way. Why is nobody home? I told you I'd come today, didn't I?" "Huh? You were serious." "I initially thought you were joking," I responded calmly to my younger sister's enraged and slightly shaky voice. It was apparent she was standing in front of our old house, the one none of us resided in anymore. Concerned about the potential disturbance she was causing, I swiftly provided her with my current address and hung up the phone. After about an hour, the doorbell chimed, and there stood Rachel and John, her sullen expression matching his. Without preamble, Rachel launched into her tirade. "You've got some nerve. And what is this place? Why on earth would someone like you be living in such a nice apartment? Her eyes blazed with anger. Unfazed by her outburst, I calmly informed them that the neighbors wouldn't appreciate the commotion. Inviting them inside, I led Rachel to the room, where she seemed taken aback by its size. Suppressing a smirk, I gestured towards our mother, quietly observing from the couch. Well, you said you had something to discuss. I don't mind at all. But if I'm in the way, should I hide in the bathroom or something? I quipped sarcastically, eliciting a sharp retort from Rachel. Moving closer to our mother, Rachel nervously greeted her. Hi, Mom. Long time no see. I'm pregnant, which is why we wanted to discuss if it's possible for John and me to stay here for a while. Suppressing a burst of laughter at her audacious request, I exclaimed, Wait, you want me to live with you guys? No way. Have you forgotten what you did to me in the past? Absolutely not. But Rachel cut me off sharply, snapping, Ruth, just shut up. This house is still under Dad's name, right? You can't even get remarried, and you're still leeching off our parents. How pathetic for a single woman like you. With a smug grin, Rachel declared, Great job taking care of our folks. From now on, John and I will live here and take care of them. So can you leave? Oh, and where's Dad? Is he at work? I had reached my limit, but it was our mother who spoke up first. With quiet solemnity, she informed us, Dad's gone. He passed away. Those few words hung heavily in the air. My parents were always serious people, and despite my divorce 13 years ago, they had always apologized to me, even though it was Rachel's fault. My father, in particular, used to express regret, saying, maybe it was my fault for not raising her better. I'm sorry, Ruth. I'm really sorry. His depression deepened to the point where he found it difficult to continue working. At the time, both of my parents were in their early 50s, and we were surviving on my income and Mom's part-time job. A while later, my father was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 10 years ago. Just before he died, he made a request. Don't tell Rachel anything. I don't think I'll make it to heaven if she comes to my funeral. True to his wishes, Mom and I didn't contact Rachel. We moved into our current house about 5 years ago. Mom had developed issues with her leg due to overworking, and we decided against renovating our old house, situated atop a hill, fearing it would be too much for her to manage. Since moving into this accessible home, Mom's leg had been feeling much better. Though I tried to maintain composure, thoughts of my late father threatened to overwhelm me. Tears welled in Mom's eyes, mirroring my own sorrow. Predictably, Rachel's response to her grief was callous. Too little, too late. Besides, it's not my fault Dad got sick. In fact, you're living in such a nice place now because of Dad's inheritance, right? That's not fair. What about my share? Didn't I have the right to inherit? She spat out, nonsensical accusations slipping effortlessly from her lips. Without hesitation, Mom retorted, her anger palpable. Inheritance? There's no such thing. You only came to us when you were in trouble, doing stupid things before your marriage. How many times do you think we paid alimony because you messed around with a married man? Live with you? Never. You must be joking. Don't be ridiculous. It was the first time both Rachel and I had witnessed Mom so enraged. Sensing the tension, Rachel fell silent. Then John, who had remained quiet like a puppet until now, interjected, Rachel, you've been deceiving me, haven't you? Ever since. I married you, and my life's been a mess. You're a reckless spender, and you don't do any housework. My ex-husband's words nearly made me burst out laughing. He must be quite something to have put up with her for 13 years. Moreover, when he approached me, he said, Ruth, I've been regretting our divorce. Do you want to start over? Let's let bygones be bygones. When he tried to touch me softly, I felt a chill run down my spine. No way. Please, let bygones be bygones. Who does he think he is? Is he stupid? It's not his place to say that, I thought, just as I was about to dodge his touch. Suddenly, the door to the next room burst open. Could you not touch her with your dirty hands, please? A man exclaimed as he appeared, catching both of us off guard. Ignoring Rachel's murmurs of confusion, I explained, I told you to stay hidden because I didn't want to involve you. He responded, I couldn't stand it when he tried to touch you, Ruth. Besides, I think having a third party will help the discussion, don't you think? Exasperated, I introduced them. Okay. This is my husband, Alex, and Tony, come here. This is our son, Tommy. He's 8 years old. Tony, who had been peeping out from behind the door, glared at Rachel and her husband. Huh? You're remarried? Unbelievable. Why? Rachel was more surprised than anyone that I had a husband and a son. My ex-husband, John, was equally shocked, gaping like a fish out of water. What do you mean? Why? How many years do you think it's been? It's been 13 years. 13 years, and despite all that time passing, you guys haven't changed one bit. Though, I added somewhat sarcastically, their faces turned bright red. I met my current husband, Alex, shortly after my father passed away. We were colleagues for a while, and one day he asked me out. When I rejected him, saying that I was a divorcee, he responded, "Does being divorced mean you can't remarry?" He asked me out once more, and we got married a year later. Our son, Tony, was born the following year. Alex treats my mother very well, doesn't mind us all living together, and my in-laws, who already live with Alex's brother and his wife, have reassured me, saying, "We're glad you're here for Alex." It was Alex who proposed moving to our current house, concerned about my mother's mobility. Facing the two shocked individuals, I firmly stated, "My mother and I are living our lives here. Can you not disrupt?" Turning my attention to Rachel, I continued, "You said you were pregnant. How many months along are you?" Their flustered responses to my question hinted that Rachel was likely lying about being pregnant. I had been married to John for only 6 months, and I never got pregnant. That fact had been the reason my former mother-in-law used to make snide comments. If Rachel wasn't pregnant, it meant that was probably the case. Rachel seemed to get along with my bad-tempered former mother-in-law. Unable to endure the harsh glares from my family, the two hastily left our house. I mean, I had heard stories, but is she really your sister? She does look like you, but her character. Alex remarked, trailing off. Anyway, it's settled for now, he concluded with a smile, to which I responded with a bitter smile. Really? Later that evening, the doorbell rang incessantly. Watching the monitor, I sighed. They came after all, I murmured to myself. Opening the door, I found Rachel and John standing there with pale faces. "We need help. Can you lend us some money?" they pleaded, kneeling down. My husband looked puzzled, but my mother and I felt differently. During the day, while waiting for a call from Rachel, my mom received a call from a certain individual, a friend of my deceased father, who currently rented our old home. His family was living there now. When I returned home, I found the flower buds in the garden ravaged and the windows cracked. The security footage clearly showed a man and a woman, with the woman infuriated, stomping on the flower beds and hurling stones at the windows. Of course, it was my enraged sister, Rachel. During a phone call with me, Mom had given Rachel's contact information to Dad's friend, and upon learning about Rachel's actions, he was furious. It seemed that in the damaged garden, there were rare flowers that were difficult to grow, and they asked for compensation. They seemed to be struggling financially to the point of having difficulty with housing, so I expected them to turn up again. But I never thought they'd show up that very day. I must admit, their audacity impressed me. "I can give you some money, but there's one condition," I stated firmly as I watched them trudge home with slumped shoulders. Despite myself, I couldn't help but laugh inwardly and think, "Serves you right." In their hands was a written pledge I had just made them sign. I had ensured they wrote in the pledge that they would never approach me again, in return for me taking responsibility for this incident. But Rachel is still my sister by blood. It's hard to completely cut ties with her. There may come a time when she'll use the power of the authorities to approach me. When that time comes, I'm prepared to fight using the audio recordings I secretly made 13 years ago. This time as evidence. Because you see, I have no intention of forgiving my sister and her husband anytime soon. Later, a friend told me that my ex-husband had immediately resigned from the big corporation after our divorce and started working as a staff member in a fortune-telling establishment run by my former mother-in-law. Because they were family, he was paid a high salary, and he and my sister seemed to have been living a life of luxury. However, a few months ago, my former mother-in-law suddenly passed away from illness, and my ex-husband, who had no talent for fortune-telling, took over as her successor. But the establishment quickly closed down. In their desperation, the couple claimed, "This is a bracelet that our late mother lovingly made," and targeted the people who had faith in my former mother-in-law. However, a whistleblower exposed their lies and the victims formed a group. The victims began flocking to the establishment every day, and my sister, who no longer had a place to live and work, came to ask for my help. I was so irritated by their audacity. However, seeing that the police have started moving, it's probably only a matter of time before the two of them are held accountable for their crimes. After that, we moved again. The reason was my husband Alex's job transfer. "Can I really come along?" Mom asked apologetically, to which Alex, my husband, responded with a chuckle. "What are you talking about? You're an important part of our family, Mother. Even if you resist, I'll carry you over my shoulder and take you along, okay?" Upon hearing Alex's light-hearted joke, Mom let out tears of gratitude. "Grandma, you're crying again. Here, have a Kleenex." Tommy, serving his emotional grandmother, was concerned but still smiled. As I watched my family, I felt a wave of gratitude for the happiness I felt. "I've been demoted at work," he announced somberly upon arriving home. "What?" I nearly spilled my tea in shock. His company's recent poor performance and impending restructuring had hinted at potential personnel changes, but I never anticipated it hitting Scott directly. Nevertheless, I felt it was crucial to stand by him during such trying times as his wife. "Well, perhaps it's just a stroke of bad luck. Times are tough, and I'm also working, so let's not fret," I replied, trying to maintain a cheerful demeanor. "I'm Catherine, 50 years old, currently employed full-time in the back office. I reside with my husband Scott, who is 2 years my senior, our high school sophomore daughter Julia, and my 72-year-old mother-in-law Ethel. While Ethel and I may not always see eye to eye, our interactions are limited to when I'm home since I work outside, so I've chosen not to dwell on it. To my daughter, I advise, your dad is feeling a bit down because of the demotion, but let's try to carry on as usual around him." However, Scott began to unload his frustrations, and as the saying goes, people often vent their frustrations on those closest to them, those they trust the most. And unfortunately, I became the recipient of it all. The following day, while cleaning the hallway on my day off, he passed by and suddenly remarked, "You've put on weight since we got married, haven't you?" "Huh? Well, I'm 50 after all. Even the gynecology pamphlets mention that women tend to gain weight around menopause. But according to my company's health checkup, I'm not overweight," I retorted. Then came his heartless words, "Forget the health checkup. Your figure is too unsightly. You're just being lazy. If you're overweight, I'm embarrassed to be seen with you and your barrel-like figure." His sudden cruelty left me speechless, and as he added, "ugly," before retreating to his room and locking the door, I was left bewildered. What? What's happening all of a sudden? I pinched my own side in disbelief. I can pinch it. When I squeeze it between my thumb and forefinger, it fits snugly, and I can tell that I've gained more than enough. But why now all of a sudden? It felt like an arrow had pierced me unexpectedly, the shock so intense that I even forgot I was holding the magician wiper in my hand, which then slipped and clattered loudly to the hallway floor. From that day onward, Scott's treatment of me grew increasingly harsh. To exacerbate matters, my mother-in-law seemed to have overheard the argument from that weekend and decided to intervene. Then tensions escalated further. As I ascended the stairs with a basket of laundry, intending to hang the clothes, my mother-in-law awaited me not at the bottom, but at the top of the stairs. She would make remarks like, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here because your obesity restricts the space for both of us." Moreover, during dinner, when I served fried chicken, she'd comment, "Isn't this what's contributing to your weight gain?" and promptly remove my plate. Instead, she'd suggest that only the three of us who weren't overweight should eat. My gynecologist had mentioned that after middle age, one tends to either gain weight or lose it, yet my mother-in-law remained on the thin side. She was as slim as a dried-up tree, but I managed to tolerate her incessant taunts. Such annoyances had become routine, so I had grown somewhat accustomed to them. What truly wounded me, however, was my husband's behavior. Since that incident, Scott ceased speaking to me. There were no expressions of gratitude or compliments, not even when I served him breakfast. He simply ate in silence and then left the table. He would enter and exit the bathroom without uttering a word. Though we still shared the bedroom, he would merely turn his back to me and immerse himself in his smartphone. I couldn't bear being treated as though I were invisible. One night, summoning my courage in the bedroom, I asked, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was cold. "Not really, but I prefer not to engage with anyone other than humans." He continued, "I don't want to be associated with a family member who is this overweight. If you truly care about me, you'll shed some pounds." What? His words left me disheartened. But it's inevitable with age. You understand that, don't you? Even though I walk 1.2 miles for my commute, I'm doing my best in my own way. Despite my efforts to combat the weight gain that often comes with aging, he coldly turned his back, dismissing my struggles. "If you're not seeing results, then it's as if you're not trying at all. Don't speak to me anymore." And with that, he truly stopped acknowledging my presence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law persisted in taunting me about my weight. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice were served, she questioned, "Are you permitted to eat that? Do you realize?" Eventually, I found myself restricted to salads and boiled vegetables. Scott remained silent throughout, merely moving his chopsticks without a word. It seemed my marriage was nearing its end. During my spare moments, I began packing my belongings. If this was the treatment I would receive from Scott, perhaps it was best to disappear altogether. When I confided in my daughter, saying I'm considering moving back to my parents' house, she sympathized. "I understand. I witnessed Grandma and Dad always picking on you during meals. It's painful to watch. I'll come with you, Mom. We can stay with your parents and I can still attend high school from there." And now, tomorrow marks the beginning of the demotion I've been anticipating, right after the winter break. Scott approached with a smile, suggesting, "Let's all have a drink, just this once." Tomorrow, life without subordinates begins for him. I pondered whether he found this situation unbearable. However, by now, I had lost the will to play along. Even his forced smile grated on my nerves. Scott piped up, "Let's enjoy a nightcap with dinner. I'll whip up some wine spritzers." It might have been the first time he had directly addressed me since the demotion announcement. He continued, "Julia can have juice, and I'll fix you a wine spritzer too, Catherine." He then placed the prepared drinks at 3 spots on the table. Odd, why the sudden change? As Scott momentarily turned his back to search for the TV remote, I discreetly sniffed the drink he had poured. What? I detected a faint scent, unmistakably familiar. I knew it from my own culinary endeavors. How could he even think to serve me this? I refused to tolerate it any longer. Between my mother-in-law's constant harassment and my husband's neglect, I had reached my limit. The sight of the wine spritzer pushed me over the edge. "Scott, could you please grab the camembert cheese from the fridge? It's from the local dairy farm, and it's absolutely delicious. I'm grateful for this family time. Would you mind fetching it?" I requested, hoping he would contribute at least this much to our moment of togetherness. As Scott made his way to the fridge, I took the opportunity to swap my drink with the one on the seat to my right. It was FIL's seat. Upon his return with the cheese, I announced, "Now that we have our snacks ready, I'll go fetch Julia and mother-in-law," loud enough for them to hear. Dinner's served. The two of them joined us in the dining room and took their seats, creating an appearance of a typical family dinner. Except, I didn't have any meatloaf or cornbread salad. Instead, we had stewed chicken soup, camembert cheese, and wine spritzers. Julia opted for juice. "Let's dig in." Julia broke the silence, while Scott and my mother-in-law remained silent. I took a sip of the wine spritzer Scott had prepared, noticing him watching me closely. With a smile, I remarked, "Yeah, it's quite good." "Huh?" Scott muttered something under his breath, but I chose to ignore him. Instead, I focused on my salad before taking another sip of the wine spritzer. Suddenly, a stream of red liquid shot out from my mother-in-law's mouth, resembling Godzilla's fiery breath. "Wait, Grandma, what happened?" my daughter exclaimed, rising from her seat in surprise. Some of the liquid splattered onto her salad. "Did you choke? Are you okay?" Julia quickly fetched a towel and returned, offering it to my mother-in-law, who wiped her mouth. However, her reaction was one of disbelief. What is this?" "Grandma, your mouth, it looks like spicy cod roe," my daughter observed, growing increasingly concerned. "Hey you!" He put it in my drink. My mother-in-law shrieked, attempting to grab me, but I coldly brushed her hand away. "It wasn't me. Scott made it," I stated firmly. This dismissal, coupled with the revelation of Scott's involvement, seemed to stun her. "What?" my mother-in-law screamed, her lips still stained with sauce. before turning to glare at Scott, who was visibly trembling. Leaning towards him, I exerted some pressure by resting my hand on the table. You thought you could sneak it into the wine spritzer, didn't you? I could detect it slightly because I've encountered it before. That was a dash of hell, wasn't it? I confronted him sternly. A drop of hell? I picked it up at the food fair in Alabama. It might not be as renowned as death sauce, but with its subtle lime undertones, I found it more appealing for its homely flavor, I explained. That hint of lime was what I detected, indicating he had added a significant amount to the drink. My mother-in-law likely didn't notice due to the wine spritzer's aroma, or perhaps she mistook the lime scent for part of the drink's flavor. Regardless, this was an exceptionally malicious prank, incredibly vicious. Wait, Dad did that? Julia's expression was one of disbelief. I actually intended for Catherine to have it, Scott admitted. You should switch it with yours. Even if my mother-in-law is foaming at the mouth, it's out of line. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me. I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I asserted in a hushed tone, maintaining pressure on Scott. And then I confronted him. Explain why on earth you thought pulling such a stunt was acceptable, I recounted. You were putting on weight, and spicy food can boost metabolism. So I figured I'd give it a try, Scott reasoned. Pathetic. What a lame excuse, I scoffed. Did he truly believe such an explanation would suffice? It was utterly embarrassing. Under pressure, my husband hesitated, shifting his chair back slightly. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste. I made it for you, he urged. Closing in, I saw him retreat. What are you implying? As the one who prepared it, you should be the one to sample it. Come on. Rising from my seat, I grabbed the cup containing the fiery concoction meant for my mother-in-law and tossed it in front of my husband. Setting it aside, I closed the gap once more. After ignoring me and treating me like I'm invisible for so long, did you honestly expect me to drink something you claimed to make with a smile out of the blue? Did that not occur to you in your empty head? Isn't it all too childish? Come on, taste it as the one who brewed it. Take some responsibility, I asserted, slamming the table. At the sound, my husband, perhaps hoping to evade further confrontation, rose from his chair and stepped back. Amidst the tense silence, a soft voice broke through. Both my husband and I turned to the source. It was our daughter, Julia. She began to speak, her words sounding strained as if she were forcing them out. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and subjecting her to repeated cruel treatment. It's like a childish prank. I might not be supposed to say this to my parents, but it's too immature and unbearable to witness. Our daughter stood up, addressing her father directly. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her own lunch. So it's not fair to say she's not making an effort, she continued, turning to face her grandmother. And you going along with it, taking away Mom's dinner like the fried chicken incident. What Grandma is doing is reminiscent of high school drama. It's embarrassing, she remarked firmly. At these words, a flustered Ethel began to offer a confused excuse. That's not it. I'm just concerned about Julia's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel positively about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Ethel, like Julia, is also struggling with weight. But Julia remained resolute. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It pained me to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she looked so upset. That's not compassion. Mom hasn't had any health issues in her checkups, yet taking away her food is just plain mean. Ethel fell silent, and it appeared Julia was finished addressing her for the time being. She turned her attention back to her father. Mom goes to the gynecologist regularly and stays active, yet Dad just brushes her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? His indifference creates such tension in the house. Can't you see it? Even Colonel Sanders and Aunt Stella from the cookie ads are on the plump side. Ever heard of happy weight? If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Stella as she gets older, I'd be overjoyed. When I have kids and she's a grandma, wouldn't it be wonderful to say, Mom, you've reached some happy weight and share a laugh? That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, she stated matter-of-factly, her gaze icy. Despite their blunt delivery, her words warmed my heart like hot milk with cookies. It was pitiful to witness a father admonished by his own daughter. And one more thing, she addressed her father directly. If you're going to disregard someone because of weight gain from aging, remember, with your receding hairline, you could easily be overlooked yourself. The tension in the room was palpable. Her sharp words left a chill in the air, making the living room feel as cold as ice. It seemed she had said all she needed to. Afterward, she turned to me. "That's enough, Mom. It's time to let it go. It'll be better for you." Her words caught me off guard. Let it go? Yes, I should let it go. As I mentioned earlier, my dream is to see you holding my child, saying you've gained some happy weight, and sharing a laugh. For my sake, I want you to be happy because that's part of my dream. So please let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream. Her words filled my heart with warmth. Each word she spoke brought me such joy that I no longer cared about being ignored by my husband, the fat shaming from my mother-in-law, or the drink incident. Warm tears streamed down my cheeks. Yes, you're right, I agreed, my vision blurred with tears. Come on, Mom, she patted my back gently, urging me forward. Oh, okay, I mumbled as I fetched a document I had been concealing for some time. What? My husband exclaimed, startled. After enduring a month of being ignored, I reached a decision. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I declared, presenting the divorce papers with only my name written on them. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you had slimmed down as I asked, I would have been satisfied. It wasn't until Julia pointed it out that I realized it was venting. But since you didn't shed any pounds, I thought I'd torment you further. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't expect this outcome, my husband confessed, panic creeping into his voice. Those who fail to notice until things escalated are the ones acting incredibly immature, Julia retorted sharply. Living without her beloved granddaughter is no laughing matter for my mother-in-law. Ethel interjected softly, her voice as gentle as stroking a cat. Julia, dear, you wouldn't want to keep living with us, your grandmothers. Julia shut down Ethel's plea with a firm refusal. I decline. I no longer wish to share the same space as people who behave like middle schoolers. Wait, okay, hold on. I understand. I'll taste it, as you suggest. I'll take responsibility as the one who prepared it, Scott conceded, picking up the glass before him and downing its contents in one gulp. Scott, much like Ethel earlier, ejects a stream of the red liquid from his mouth, leaving him with a set of lobster-like lips. There, see. I took responsibility, didn't I, Julia? Scott proudly declares. Julia captures a picture of them both with their lobster lips on her phone and remarks, "You both are so ridiculous. Mom, let's go," before swiftly exiting the living room. Yeah, I'll follow her lead, I agree. Left behind is a dinner table splattered here and there with the wine cocktail mixed with a drop of hell, along with a husband and mother-in-law sporting red lobster lips. I returned to my parents' house with Julia. Upon explaining the situation at home, both my mother and father are enraged and decide to confront Scott and Ethel. They return with the divorce papers, and I ultimately end up getting divorced. My ex-husband Scott's career hits rock bottom, with no notable achievements in his remaining years. It turns out he had a habit of ignoring issues he disliked, even with his subordinates, which ultimately led to his demotion, a revelation I only recently discovered. Meanwhile, my ex-mother-in-law Ethel, who had been difficult and seldom ventured outside, finds herself in a stalemate within their two-person household. Eventually, I received a call saying, "Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Julia were here." This sentiment is underscored by the 17 years that passed since Julia was born and we lived together. Please come back, I'll stop ignoring you. But I won't be returning. Enjoy indulging while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have more physical work to do, my mother jokes with a smile. That's a good point. Today, like every day, I'm walking to work. Along the way, my boss drives by and stops the car, offering, "Need a ride?" "No, thank you, I'm sticking to my diet." "Just get in, Catherine," he insists. "I found a new boyfriend," I announce proudly. Both of us have experienced divorce, which has strengthened our bond and mutual understanding. Dieting is great and all, but being late would pose a problem, he mentions as he drives. "I've never been late before," I retort, puffing up my cheeks defensively. He glances at me and gently pokes my puffed-up cheek with his finger. "Give me the time you saved by riding in the car today for our conversation," he says with a playful smile, ever the chatty boyfriend. My husband's estate, valued at $80 million along with this house, will be inherited by me as we have no children. My sister-in-law's demeanor is always a challenge to contend with. My name is Emma, a 45-year-old who works part-time. My husband and I are blessed with 2 sons, one a senior and the other a sophomore in high school. The elder one is currently preparing for his college entrance exams, aspiring to follow his passion for law. His ambition was ignited at a tender age, likely influenced by my brother Oliver, who is a seasoned lawyer. A few years back, Oliver established his own law firm, which my eldest son admires greatly. From his early years, my son demonstrated a knack for academic excellence, a trait that Oliver wholeheartedly encouraged upon learning of his nephew's aspirations. Whenever they meet, my son reaffirms his goal to emulate his uncle's legal career, to which Oliver responds with a warm chuckle, urging him to swiftly pursue his dreams and walk in his footsteps. When my brother, who was married but childless, came to visit, he delighted in playing with my sons and showering them with affection. His wife, a woman a decade his junior, kept her distance from our family, rarely gracing our home with her presence. As a result, our interactions with her were few and far between. My brother and I endured the loss of our parents at a young age, leading him to step into a parental role when I was on the brink of marriage. Soon after my wedding, he followed suit and tied the knot himself. My husband and I felt reassured when we learned of my brother's intention to marry a younger woman. However, upon meeting his fiancée, I was taken aback by her perpetually sullen demeanor. We had anticipated joyous exchanges, considering she was about to marry into our family, yet her expression remained persistently glum as she regarded us. In the presence of my brother and his fiancée, I offered a superficial compliment, saying, "You two make a great pair." Yet my true sentiments emerge only in the quiet moments at home with my husband. I couldn't shake off the curiosity about why she seemed so discontented. As their marriage was sealed, my husband echoed my concerns, remarking with a hint of worry, "She didn't seem particularly joyful as a bride. It's a bit concerning, isn't it?" Shortly before their wedding, my brother tied the knot with his 10 years younger fiancée. To celebrate my husband, our children, and I paid them a visit at their newly acquired house. The grandeur of the place left me in awe, a testament to my brother's success as a law firm owner. However, the absence of my sister-in-law raised eyebrows. In jest, my husband quipped to my brother, "Has your wife already abandoned ship?" Though meant in good humor, the tension in my brother's reaction left us both uneasy. According to him, whenever there's trouble, his wife retreats to her parents' home. Today, she stayed over to celebrate her mother's birthday. My husband's expression drooped, perhaps regretting his attempt at humor. Then, out of the blue, my brother posed a serious question with a poker face. "If I were ever unable to have children, would you consider letting me adopt one of yours?" I initially brushed it off as a jest, but my brother's earnest demeanor suggested otherwise. Stunned by the unexpected proposal, I found myself unable to respond, while my husband, with a chuckle, replied, "Who knows what the future holds? Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. If you're serious, and if our children are comfortable with it, we can discuss it then." Though my husband seemed to take it lightly, I couldn't shake off the underlying concerns about both the adoption suggestion and the strained relationship between my brother and his wife. It wasn't my place to interfere in their marital issues, but I couldn't help but worry. Subsequently, whether it was our visits to my brother's home or his visits to ours, he always came alone. His wife was conspicuously absent, further fueling my apprehensions. My brother never brought up his wife, so I refrained from prying into their relationship. After over a decade of marriage, her presence faded into obscurity in my mind. This year, as my eldest son's acceptance into his dream law school was celebrated at our house, my brother broached the topic of adoption once again. "Just as I mentioned before, would you consider allowing me to adopt one of your children?" he inquired. Their inability to conceive led him to revisit the idea. The last time we discussed it, they were newlyweds, so there was no urgency. Yet this time, my brother's tone conveyed seriousness. Despite the weight of the proposal, my husband's response was swift and nonchalant. "Would you prefer our eldest son, considering his ambition to become a lawyer?" he quipped. While my husband's manner seemed casual, I remained cautious, mindful of the profound impact such a decision would have on our sons' lives. Even though my brother, their uncle, would be adopting them, I couldn't shake the worry about my sister-in-law's potential treatment of my sons. who wouldn't be her own flesh and blood. Seeking reassurance, I cautiously asked my brother, "Is your wife on board with the adoption?" His response, accompanied by a wry smile, was somewhat comforting. "Don't fret over her. We've discussed it already," he assured me. While I felt relieved knowing they had addressed the matter, I couldn't reach a decision immediately. Instead, I resolved to involve my sons in the discussion and let them weigh in, considering they were already in high school and capable of making their own choices. We left the matter unresolved that day, but a few days later, I received an urgent call from my brother's lawyer's office. They informed me that he had collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Frantically, I made my way there, only to find the law firm's staff anxiously awaiting news. It appeared my brother had suffered a stroke at work and was now unconscious. Once I arrived, the law firm staff departed, leaving me to confront the worrying situation alone. The law firm staff also mentioned they couldn't reach my sister-in-law. I tried calling the landline, but received no answer, and I didn't have her cell phone number. Eventually, my husband and younger son arrived, but still there was no luck reaching her. It was my younger son who stumbled upon a smartphone amidst my brother's belongings. With some effort, we managed to unlock it and began searching for her contact details. When she finally picked up the call from that phone, her response was laced with anger. "I warned you not to call again. I'll take legal action," she snapped. Attempting to convey urgency amidst her tirade, I interjected, "It's Emma, Oliver's sister. My brother has collapsed and is in the hospital." Her tone softened upon realizing it was me on the line. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I mistook you for Oliver. You said he collapsed?" she inquired. After updating her on my brother's condition and the hospital he was admitted to, her response took a surprisingly casual turn. "I'm unable to come to the hospital right now due to prior commitments. Please keep me informed," she requested before abruptly ending the call. I couldn't help but wonder if my sister-in-law had more pressing matters to attend to, especially considering her husband's illness. With the realization that she wouldn't be of any assistance, we resolved to care for my brother ourselves. Since my eldest son had completed his university entrance exams and was spending most of his time at home, he took on the responsibility of visiting my brother daily on my behalf. Despite our efforts, my brother remained unconscious and in critical condition. However, my sister-in-law never reached out or made an appearance at the hospital. Nearly a week after my brother was admitted, I made another attempt to contact her. This time, she answered the phone promptly, her tone oddly cheerful. "What's the matter? Is he dead?" she exclaimed, lacking any semblance of empathy. Struggling to contain my anger, I responded calmly, "He's still alive. Why haven't you visited him at the hospital?" Her response, dripping with indifference, only fueled my frustration. "I'm neither a doctor nor a miracle worker." "There's nothing I can do for his recovery," she retorted dismissively. Her callous demeanor pushed me over the edge and I hung up the phone, unable to suppress my growing rage. Suspicions began to brew within me regarding my brother's motives for wanting to adopt one of my sons. It dawned on me that perhaps he had resigned himself to the idea of not having children with his wife, indicating possible discord in their marriage. Curiosity led me to inquire about how they met after their marriage was finalized, to which my brother revealed they had been introduced through a marriage counseling agency. The revelation stirred a mix of emotions within me, especially the notion that my sister-in-law may have married my brother solely for the security of his profession as a lawyer and the promise of a comfortable life. This thought fueled my indignation further, but when I confided in my husband, his response cut deeper. If Oliver were to pass away in his current state, his wife would inherit the entire estate given their lack of children, he remarked callously. As my brother joined us to celebrate my eldest son's recent achievements and broached the topic of adoption, I couldn't shake the suspicion that perhaps his interest stemmed from considerations of inheritance rather than genuine familial intentions. I wish I could have reached a decision then and there, but the situation left me feeling powerless. After my brother's departure that day, I casually broached the topic with my two sons. To my surprise, my younger son expressed eagerness to be adopted, viewing it as a ticket to an easier life under Oliver's wing. Unlike his older brother, he seemed content to go with the flow, lacking clear aspirations for the future. I had anticipated my eldest son, who admired his brother, to follow suit, but his response caught me off guard. "I don't want to be adopted," he declared firmly. As the eldest, it's my responsibility to take care of you, Mom, and Dad. His words filled me with pride, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that my eldest son, with his ambition to become a lawyer, was the more suitable candidate for adoption. Although I longed to initiate the adoption process on behalf of my unconscious brother, the circumstances thwarted my efforts. Despite my reluctance to claim any share of my brother's inheritance, I couldn't bear the thought of a single penny falling into the hands of my sister-in-law, who seemed to be eagerly awaiting his demise. I could only hold on to the hope of my brother's recovery, but it never came to fruition. Days later, he passed away, leaving me with the solemn duty of informing my sister-in-law. My brother has passed away. Can we arrange a funeral? I conveyed the somber news. To my surprise, her response was oddly cheerful. You have the final say. Just please don't involve me in any formalities, she replied before abruptly ending the call. Feeling a surge of frustration, I held back my emotions as my husband and I took charge of planning the funeral. With assistance from the law firm's staff, we navigated through the arrangements. While my husband expressed concerns about the firm's future, my brother had already ensured its stability by entrusting its management to a capable individual. Thus, the firm would continue to operate seamlessly as a corporation. At the funeral, the turnout was overwhelming, with countless wreaths brought in to pay respects. The hall overflowed with mourners, a testament to the profound impact my brother had on so many lives. As the funeral unfolded, I found myself once again marveling at the incredible person my brother had been. Alongside me, my son lent a hand in the somber proceedings. However, his mood darkened upon witnessing the notable figures in attendance, presidents of major corporations, politicians, and other dignitaries. I should have been the one adopted, he lamented bitterly. I never realized how remarkable he truly was. My husband and I empathized with his sorrow, understanding the weight of his realization. As I fulfilled my role as a pallbearer, no one questioned the absence of my sister-in-law, nor was it brought up in conversation. I couldn't help but wonder if we were the only ones privy to the knowledge of my brother's marriage. They hadn't had a wedding ceremony, instead they simply embarked on a honeymoon. It dawned on me that even our relatives might have been unaware of their marital status. Reflecting on the situation, I couldn't help but harbor regrets. If only they hadn't married, there wouldn't be a need for a wife who failed to show up at her husband's funeral, and I lamented not allowing my brother to adopt my younger son sooner, fearing that she might seize control of my brother's estate with the support of the law firm's staff. The funeral for my brother had concluded, and I extended invitations for everyone to gather at his house for a meal, expressing my gratitude. Thanks to all of you, my brother will be able to rest in peace, I said, my voice laden with sorrow. As we mourned together, my sister-in-law made a sudden appearance, clad in a flashy pink coat, as if timed to coincide with the conclusion of the funeral. Addressing her with a mix of surprise and suspicion, I asked, "Why have you chosen this moment to come?" With a wide grin on her face, she spoke loudly for all to hear. As my husband's wife, I inherit his estate, valued at $80 million, along with this house. With no children in the picture, everything belongs to me. Her triumphant declaration prompted laughter from my brother's colleagues, leaving us puzzled by their reaction. My sister-in-law shot them a glare and scolded. "What's so funny? How rude." Her smirk quickly faded when one of the lawyers interjected, "We're aware that you're officially divorced." The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. "You were divorced?" I exclaimed incredulously upon hearing the news the day before my brother's collapse. Glancing at my sister-in-law's visage, I saw a chilling expression etched across her features as she locked eyes with the individuals who had unveiled the truth. As she gritted her teeth, another lawyer interjected, "I've also heard that you were ordered to pay alimony due to the affair that led to the divorce. It's unavoidable." Furious, my sister-in-law directed her glare at the lawyer who spoke, snapping, "I'm not obligated to pay alimony anymore. There's no one left to pay." Her words dripped with disdain, but she was swiftly rebutted by the legal expert. "The right to alimony also transfers upon inheritance, so you'll still owe it to Emma, the sole inheritor." It dawned on me for the first time that I was the sole inheritor of my brother's estate. With their divorce finalized and our parents no longer alive, I was left as the last remaining family member. She seemed to grasp the reality of the situation, her expression morphing into one of horror as she locked eyes with me. prompting me to instinctively step back. Yet her demeanor remained defiant as she resumed her tirade. Don't I deserve half of the estate now that the divorce is settled? A lawyer, looking dismayed, interjected, Didn't Oliver provide you with funds upon the finalization of the divorce? I have the receipt certificate. Another lawyer chimed in. He also acquired a house prior to the marriage, so it isn't subject to property division. I found a sense of satisfaction in witnessing her being lectured by the lawyers. Despite her protestations, she'd appeared to recall something and chuckled lightly as she continued. There's still the life insurance. I should be the beneficiary. Her resilience impressed me, navigating through a hostile environment where everyone seemed to be against her. Then, with a smirk, she added, I changed the beneficiary of Oliver's life insurance to myself. However, the lawyer promptly refuted her claim regarding the life insurance, stating, Oliver was a resolute individual, so it's likely he made the change upon finalizing the divorce. As I sifted through my brother's belongings, I stumbled upon the life insurance policy, but my sister-in-law caught sight of it. Swiftly, she snatched the document from my grasp, her impatience evident as she scrutinized the beneficiary. However, her demeanor shifted to one of disappointment as she handed the certificate back to me, her shoulders slumping in defeat. It was then that I noticed the beneficiary was me. Realizing her efforts were futile, my sister-in-law blurted out her true sentiments without filter. I married a lawyer because I thought he was wealthy. But all I got was a pittance, and now I have to pay alimony. It's a colossal mistake. In response, the lawyer's expression hardened as he retorted. Oliver expressed similar sentiments. He regretted seeking the counsel of a marriage counselor, lamenting the monumental mistake he had made. Although my brother never confided such sentiments to me, his honesty was well known among his colleagues and subordinates. Faced with undeniable facts, my sister-in-law turned on her heel and departed from my brother's house. As time passed, she found herself obligated to pay alimony in installments, despite lacking stable employment. Desperate to fulfill her financial obligations, she hastily sought out employment opportunities. However, her lack of commitment led to a string of short-lived jobs. In a desperate attempt to secure quick wealth, she returned to the marriage counseling agency and set her sights on a wealthy individual. Deceiving him with promises of financial gain through marriage, she exploited his trust and attempted to swindle him. Yet, her scheme unraveled swiftly when the man saw through her deceit and reported her to the authorities. Subsequently, she was arrested for marriage fraud, facing the consequences of her actions. According to a lawyer from my brother's law firm who disclosed the truth, no alimony was ever paid to me. When I consulted the lawyer regarding the situation, I was informed of the recent developments. It was in May when the lawyer relayed the news that my sister-in-law had been apprehended. With her arrest, the likelihood of receiving alimony payments seemed slim in the foreseeable future. However, alimony wasn't my foremost concern. What I truly desired was to witness her facing the consequences of her actions and enduring a fate befitting her deeds. I firmly believe my brother would concur, which is why I wish for thorough police investigation into her other transgressions. I hope she's charged as a felon and brought to justice in court. Meanwhile, my family relocated to a house left behind by my brother, unexpectedly inheriting his property. My husband and sons were overjoyed at the prospect of moving into a spacious house, a stark contrast to our previous cramped apartment. Amidst the excitement, my eldest son, fueled by newfound determination, immersed himself in his law studies. Observing the interactions between his brother's colleagues and subordinates, he felt a strong yearning to pursue a career in law. Though never formally adopted by my brother, I hold on to the hope that he will carry forth my brother's legacy and excel as a lawyer, just as he aspired to be. However, my younger son harbored a sense of disappointment upon learning that I had inherited my brother's entire estate. I wish I had been adopted by uncle so I could have inherited everything, he confessed candidly. Despite his words carrying a hint of jest, his smile betrayed a hint of genuine longing. Having made the decision to marry my boyfriend Ethan and paying a visit to his family's abode for introductions on the appointed day, I encountered a startling rejection from all his kin. Their chilling words echoed, "Never reach out to us again. Your voice is unwelcome. It seemed their upbringing, steeped in adulation for their physical charms, had fostered an environment of harshness and envy towards those who possessed what they lacked. Regrettably, I found myself the unwitting target of their jealousy, with even my father-in-law and brother-in-law silently aligning with their rejection. Yet, several months passed, I had the sweet satisfaction of orchestrating a masterful revenge upon these four. My name is Amy, age 27, now basking in serene and joyful days encircled by love for my husband, our cherubic child, and my own parents. The genesis of this newfound contentment traces back 3 years, when I was just 24. It all began with Ethan, my former colleague turned beau, who proposed to me. Bonding over our shared love for cinema, our friendship blossomed into romance through countless movie dates on our days off. Ethan's gentle demeanor and universal amiability endeared him to many at work. Averse to conflict, he possessed a forgiving nature that endeared him to all. From the moment I joined the company, Ethan intrigued me, so when he finally mustered the courage to ask me out, I was elated, eagerly anticipating each day at work. During moments of professional missteps and personal lows, he offered unwavering support, fostering a natural desire within me. I want to spend my life with this man. Ethan harbored ambitions of launching his own business down the line, and I was eager to stand by his side, offering unwavering support every step of the way. When he proposed to me, my heart soared with joy. There was no hesitation. I accepted his proposal without a second thought, resolved to spend my life with him. The weekend following Ethan's heartfelt proposal, we promptly journeyed to my family's abode, introducing Ethan to my parents and sharing our plans to wed. Ethan's warmth and charm extended effortlessly to my family, effortlessly bonding with my father over drinks and conversation. My parents, enchanted by Ethan's demeanor, readily embraced our union, reveling in our shared happiness. Witnessing Ethan effortlessly blend into my family dynamic, I couldn't help but feel blessed to have him in my life. As the weekend waned, our sights turned to meeting Ethan's family. While I realized I hadn't gleaned much about them from Ethan, I brushed aside any concerns, presuming his independence might have led to infrequent contact with his parents. The eve of our visit, during a casual phone call with Ethan discussing our plans for the morrow, he cryptically mentioned, "My parents might come off a bit peculiar, but don't dwell on it too much." His words sparked a twinge of apprehension, but with the early morning looming, I chose to set aside any worries and retire for the night around 10 p.m. The following day, Ethan and I rendered his vows at the station, embarking together towards his family residence. It marked my inaugural visit to his familial abode, and despite my attempts to quell my nerves, a persistent jitteriness lingered throughout the morning. Walking alongside Ethan, his words seemed to blur amidst the frantic thudding of my heart. Before us loomed a majestic mansion, reminiscent of a fairy tale castle. The sprawling garden only intensified my trepidation as I pondered Ethan's upbringing in such opulent surroundings. Yet, his reassuring smile offered some solace as he gently remarked, "Feeling nervous? It's all right, let's proceed." Upon the grand entrance, my mother-in-law greeted us warmly, her graceful demeanor and impeccable appearance exuding elegance. Her welcoming demeanor momentarily eased my apprehension. Once inside, the rest of the family, save for my mother-in-law, greeted me with smiles, alleviating some of my unease. Finding myself warmly embraced, I settled onto the sofa, engaging in pleasant conversation over dinner before proudly announcing our engagement to all present. Ethan's family beamed with delight, particularly my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who expressed their excitement at welcoming me into the family with endearing words. "We're thrilled to have such a charming addition to our family." Their warm reception touched me deeply, fostering a sense of belonging. As the pleasant conversation flowed, I learned more about Ethan's family. His father managed a successful company specializing in package tours, while his brother, an executive director within the same company, harbored aspirations of eventually assuming its leadership. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law gracefully balanced their roles as homemakers, enriching their lives with pursuits like dance classes and flower arrangement lessons. My sister-in-law, radiating confidence with her impeccable appearance, left a lasting impression. Meanwhile, my father-in-law's kindness and affable demeanor put me at ease, his engaging conversation effortlessly quelling any nerves. I found solace in his amiable presence, genuinely grateful for his warmth. However, The harmonious atmosphere was briefly disrupted by a question from my father-in-law, inquiring about my employment status at the same company as Ethan. I clarified that I held a permanent position, having joined as a regular employee following my graduation from Harvard University. His pride in my accomplishments was palpable, his admiration evident as he praised my achievements. The ensuing praise from both my father-in-law and Ethan left me feeling slightly embarrassed yet profoundly touched by their words of admiration and support. In reality, my journey led me to a prestigious university in the United States, where I dedicated myself to studies even at the expense of sleep during my high school years. My parents, despite limited means, toiled relentlessly to afford my college education. Fueled by a deep-seated determination to secure a promising career and ultimately repay my parents' sacrifices, I poured my heart into every endeavor. Engrossed in lively conversation with others, I couldn't help but notice the sudden silence from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. A pang of apprehension gripped me, prompting a frantic search for a change of topic. Observing a striking arrangement of flowers adorning the table, I ventured a compliment only to be met with a sharp retort from my mother-in-law, questioning the sincerity of my interest in housewives' pastimes, given my professional stature. Bewildered by her abrupt shift in demeanor, I struggled to comprehend the underlying hostility. Echoing her sentiments, my sister-in-law insinuated that my academic background might lead me to dismiss their pursuits as trivial. I never intended such implications, yet found myself at a loss for words, choking back tears of frustration. Ethan swiftly intervened, rebuking their baseless assumptions and defending my character. Though his words offered solace, I remained mute, unable to muster a response, my gaze fixed downward. Surveying the room, I noted my father-in-law, inebriated and slumbering on the sofa since noon, alongside my disinterested brother-in-law, idly scrolling through his phone. Sensing the palpable tension, Ethan tactfully suggested bringing the gathering to a close, offering a much-needed reprieve from the stifling atmosphere. As we made our way back to the station, Ethan offered his apologies, explaining, "I'm sorry about today. My mom and sister have quite the pride. They're particularly touchy about their high school education." Later, Ethan revealed that his mother-in-law had worked at a flower shop straight out of high school, where his father-in-law had become enamored with her at first sight. A captivating beauty, she drew numerous customers to the shop daily. Through persistent pursuit, his father-in-law won her affections, and they eventually married, with him still seemingly wrapped around her finger to this day. Similarly, his sister-in-law, a striking woman, had reconnected with Ethan's brother-in-law at a high school reunion in their early 20s. Enchanted by her transformation, he pursued her relentlessly until they became a couple. Like his father-in-law, Ethan's brother-in-law appeared to acquiesce to his wife's wishes without question. Despite my advanced education, I struggled to comprehend their insecurities. They were both beautiful women with devoted husbands who adored and protected them. Yet, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease, questioning whether marriage would truly be as harmonious as I had envisioned. Nonetheless, with the family's blessings secured, we forged ahead with wedding plans, hoping that open communication would bridge any divides. "Rest assured, Amy, I'll always stand by your side," Ethan reassured me, instilling a sense of optimism within me. After months of meticulous planning, the day before our wedding arrived, only to be disrupted by an unexpected phone call from Ethan's mother. As Ethan's voice rose in disbelief, I listened in shock to his revelation that his parents had suddenly decided not to attend the wedding due to a forgotten trip they had booked for the same day. Stunned and bewildered by this unforeseen turn of events, we attempted to reach them for an explanation to no avail, met only by the incessant ringing of unanswered calls. Perplexed by the abrupt turn of events, we hastened to Ethan's parents' house, only to find it dark and deserted, indicating their absence. I voiced my concerns to Ethan, recalling the tense atmosphere during my previous visit, questioning if I had inadvertently offended his mother and sister. Ethan attributed their demeanor to their prideful nature, acknowledging that highly intelligent individuals often bore stubborn tendencies, but he remained uncertain of any specific grievances they held. Puzzled by his father's absence as well, Ethan explained that both his father and brother-in-law were inclined to defer to their wives, likely aligning with them to avoid discord. His distress was palpable, leaving me at a loss for words. Ultimately, our attempts to contact Ethan's family proved futile, compelling us to proceed with the wedding sans their presence. We were left bewildered by the unfolding events, questioning the reasons behind their absence. Even if they genuinely forgot about their trip, I struggled to comprehend why they would prioritize it over their son's wedding. Upon learning of Ethan's family's absence, my own parents expressed understanding, though their expressions betrayed a hint of complexity, burdening me with a sense of guilt for causing them distress on what should have been a joyous occasion. During the reception, murmurs circulated among our guests, questioning the absence of Ethan's parents. Even our boss, who graciously offered a toast, inquired about their whereabouts, leaving us grappling for an appropriate response. Faced with the dilemma of revealing the truth, we opted to deflect inquiries by attributing their absence to illness. What was meant to be a day of celebration turned into one fraught with mental exhaustion. Days later, when Ethan and I visited his parents to relay the events of the ceremony, his mother's nonchalant demeanor and lack of remorse stung deeply. Suppressing my sadness to maintain familial harmony, I responded with a strained smile, concealing the hurt that lingered within. Ethan's voice cut through the tension like a knife, his words echoing with a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Canceling the day before the wedding, with all our relatives absent, is that even acceptable? If you had no intention of attending, you shouldn't have accepted the invitation in the first place. His sister-in-law's response only added fuel to the fire. I would have attended if Amy wasn't the bride, she declared coldly, leaving me utterly bewildered, my head spinning with confusion. Before I could make sense of her words, Ethan's mother-in-law launched her own accusation, attempting to deflect blame onto me. Don't lay all the blame on us. I wanted to witness my son's special day, but Amy ruined it. I'm a victim here too. I demand an apology. Ethan, sensing my shock, rallied to my defense. How can you blame Amy? She's done nothing wrong, he retorted, his voice tinged with incredulity. But the silence of Ethan's father-in-law, until now, was ominous. When he finally spoke, it was with a venomous intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Enough is enough. How dare you barge in here on our day off to complain? Is that all you came for? Get out. His words were like a slap in the face, and before we could even process what was happening, we found ourselves forcibly ejected from their home. As I hastily slipped on my shoes at the entrance, my mind reeled with shock and disbelief, struggling to comprehend the sudden turn of events. A sharp sting on the sole of my foot jolted me into a panic. Ouch! I exclaimed, lifting my foot to find a caterpillar wriggling inside my shoe. Recoiling with disgust, I hastily kicked off my shoe and fled outside, releasing the creature into the open air. As I stood, one shoe on, catching my breath, I noticed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law watching, their laughter laced with a malicious edge. Are you all right? They asked, their concern ringing hollow. Eager to escape the uncomfortable situation, I mumbled an apology and made a swift exit, only to be halted by my mother-in-law's unexpected words. Amy, please refrain from involving yourself in our affairs except for weddings and funerals, she said, her tone final as she shut the door, leaving me bewildered and hurt. What had I done to deserve such treatment? All I wanted was to foster a positive relationship with Ethan's family. On the journey home, Ethan showered me with apologies, assuring me that I needn't endure any further interactions with his family. Despite his efforts to console me, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt and confusion. The revelation that my presence had caused such disdain from his mother-in-law and sister-in-law weighed heavily on my mind, leaving me questioning my worth. The next day brought a new wave of distress as my entire body erupted in intense itching. Rushing to the mirror, I was greeted with the sight of fiery red swelling covering my skin. A visit to the dermatologist revealed that the cause was caterpillar stings from the previous day. The itching was unbearable, robbing me of sleep for weeks on end. Recalling an unsettling incident at Ethan's house, where I had noticed my brother-in-law tampering with my shoes at the front door, I couldn't shake the feeling of distrust towards my in-laws. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Ethan fell ill and was hospitalized with stomach pains, diagnosed with a suspected gastric ulcer. Worried sick, I insisted he take time off work and accompany him to the hospital for further tests, grappling with the mounting challenges that seemed to plague us relentlessly. I hesitated, recalling the blunt instruction to only reach out in the event of a wedding or funeral. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to keep Ethan's hospitalization a secret from his parents. Gathering my courage, I dialed their number, my hand trembling as the phone rang, nerves twisting my stomach into knots. The mere sound of my mother-in-law's voice filled me with a profound sense of dislike, a testament to the strained relationship that had developed between us. "Hello," she answered. "It's Amy. I apologize for not keeping in touch. There's something I need to tell you," I began tentatively. "Ethan has been hospitalized. They suspect it might be a gastric ulcer, so he's undergoing tests," I explained, hoping for a shred of concern or empathy. "A gastric ulcer, huh? Probably from overworking," she dismissed callously. "Please spare me from such trivial matters. I'm busy," she added, brushing off Ethan's health concerns with callous indifference. "Trivial? Don't you care about Ethan?" I retorted, my frustration bubbling over. "I won't bother you anymore. I'll call Ethan directly," I concluded, my voice thick with disappointment. Before I could hang up, my brother-in-law abruptly took the phone. "You're too persistent. Can't you read the room?" he chastised. "Whether Ethan's in the hospital or not, your constant calls are irritating," he snapped before ending the call abruptly. The abrupt click of the line cutting off left me reeling, a surge of indignation coursing through me. The callous rejection from my in-laws, their harsh words cutting deeper than I had anticipated, shattered any lingering hope of reconciliation. In that moment, I made a solemn vow to myself. If they don't want me to contact them, fine. I want nothing to do with that family anymore. I'll never reach out to them again, no matter the circumstances. Following Ethan's recovery, which proved to be a mild gastric ulcer, he diligently adhered to medication, experiencing a notable improvement in his health. I recounted the entire ordeal to Ethan, who met my explanation with unwavering determination. "Let's distance ourselves from my family," he declared firmly. "The only person who matters to me now is you, Amy. If they can't accept you, then they're not family to me, regardless of blood ties." A year later, Ethan took the leap to pursue his long-standing aspiration of establishing a software sales business, leveraging his prior job experience. His relentless dedication paid off as he tirelessly worked towards realizing his dream. While our venture was still in its nascent stage, witnessing even a fraction of Ethan's vision materialize filled me with profound joy. Our happiness only multiplied with the arrival of our healthy baby boy a year into Ethan's entrepreneurial journey. My parents shared in our elation, frequently visiting us despite the lengthy journey from their home to ours. We opted not to inform Ethan's parents of our son's birth, certain that their indifference would remain unchanged. Their silence following our earlier confrontation offered a sense of relief, freeing us from the burdensome ties of a strained relationship. Several months later, as the global pandemic of the new coronavirus swept across the world, our country declared a state of emergency, urging citizens to stay indoors. News broadcasts were inundated with discussions of the pandemic's impact, particularly on industries such as restaurants and tourism. My heart ached for those affected, though I couldn't help but wonder about Ethan's father's package tour company. Yet it was a passing thought, and any satisfaction I derived from imagining its plight was fleeting. Despite the challenging circumstances, Ethan's business flourished. While the initial phase of our entrepreneurial journey saw some financial instability, recent months had brought a surge in income, surpassing even Ethan's earnings as an employee. Our future looked promising, a testament to our resilience in the face of adversity. During this period, Ethan began receiving numerous calls from his parents' home. Despite the persistent attempts at communication, Ethan appeared determined to avoid any interaction, intentionally ignoring the calls and disregarding voicemails left behind. I often reassured him, "You don't need to worry about me. It's all right to reach out to them." While I held a deep-seated disdain for his family, I couldn't shake the guilt of causing Ethan to sever ties with his own parents. Yet Ethan remained resolute in his stance, affirming, "Amy is my top priority, not my parents. If they can't accept you, regardless of their parental status, I can't hold them in high regard." I felt a mix of remorse and admiration for Ethan's unwavering loyalty. Despite Ethan's steadfast avoidance, the persistence of his parents was relentless. Daily calls went unanswered, and then one day, a letter arrived from his family home, bearing a startling message. "Our business is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and urgent financial discussions are necessary," it read. Their audacity was staggering, considering the estranged relationship they had imposed. We refused to entertain their demands, opting instead to let them face the consequences of their actions. "Let them face the repercussions of their decisions," I remarked. Soon enough, my own phone began to ring incessantly. Occupied with work, I couldn't attend the calls, but a voicemail left a clear indication of Ethan's continued avoidance. It seemed they had resorted to contacting me despite my explicit instructions to the contrary. Reluctantly, I listened to the message left on my voicemail, which simply stated, "Is this Amy's number? If Ethan persists in his silence, I'll visit in person. Let him know." 2 days following the voicemail, Ethan and I found ourselves enjoying a rare day off together at home. Just as we settled in after lunch, the doorbell chimed, signaling an unexpected visitor. Peering through the monitor, I was met with the sight of my 4 in-laws standing at the doorstep. Surprised, I looked at Ethan, who let out a weary sigh. "We could just ignore them. They'll eventually give up," he suggested. However, I couldn't shake the sense of pity. "They've come all this way. It wouldn't hurt to let them in," I countered. After a brief moment of contemplation, Ethan relented, unlocking the door to face whatever awaited us on the other side. Pitiful. Never would I entertain such thoughts about our cunning in-laws. I resolved silently, deliberately withholding the voicemail's revelation from Ethan. Everything was orchestrated to draw them into our home. My faint surprise at their arrival was a well-rehearsed act. I knew their persistence would eventually lead them to our doorstep. There was a method to my apparent madness. The true retaliation had yet to unfold, and it was time for a showdown. As the entire in-law clan stood at our front door, marching in without restraint upon entry, I couldn't help but express my exasperation. "Is it really that difficult to just open a door?" "It's simply uncouth," I remarked with thinly veiled frustration. Observing our son engrossed in play with his toys on the floor, Ethan's mother couldn't resist a remark. "Whose child is this?" she inquired. "He's our son," I replied matter-of-factly. "Ah, I recall now. Since you insisted we cease contact, I saw no need to inform you of his arrival." "Clearly, your interest is lacking," she retorted dismissively. Her contemptuous gaze met mine, and she muttered disparagingly under her breath. I found myself relishing the moment and turned to address Ethan's father. "What brings you here today?" A courtesy call would have been appreciated, I stated, my tone tinged with sarcasm. Ethan's father bristled at my remark. "Didn't you receive the letter?" he retorted sharply. "You mean the one that arrived 2 days ago?" I countered, noting the frustration in his tone. "If you had bothered to read it, you'd know we required urgent communication," he snapped back, his anger palpable. Swiftly, I retorted, "You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us anymore, so I assumed contacting you was unnecessary." Suppressing a grin as I faced the stern quartet, I noticed Ethan, my husband, remaining silent, allowing me to speak my mind freely. It was characteristic of him to gauge the situation adeptly. It seemed unfathomable that he was raised by parents lacking such basic sensibilities. Abruptly, my father-in-law's demeanor shifted, transitioning to a pleading tone. "Please apologize for the past. The ongoing COVID situation has devastated our travel business. With cancellations piling up and no new bookings in sight, we're facing ruin. Can't you assist me with some financial aid?" In response, I maintained, "While I empathize with your predicament, I cannot readily aid someone who previously disavowed any connection with me. However, genuine displays of sincerity might sway my decision." Outraged, my father-in-law attempted intimidation, his expression contorted in fury. Unfazed, I resolved to handle the situation on my terms. "You're free to leave if you don't agree," I declared calmly. As my father-in-law persisted in pleading, beseeching me for assistance, I remained resolute. Eventually, he implored the others to apologize, leading to a collective plea from the entire group. In response, I politely declined their appeals, maintaining my composure. Enraged, my father-in-law slammed his hand on the table, his anger palpable as he grabbed my collar, accusing me of arrogance amid his attempts at reconciliation. Taken aback by his sudden aggression, I was about to intervene when Ethan stepped in, asserting, "Dad, don't lay a hand on Amy." My father-in-law retorted, "You're choosing your wife over your parents' plea." Ethan remained firm, stating, "Amy is my priority. I can't condone mistreatment towards her, even from my own parents. I won't accept superficial apologies just for money. If you can't sincerely apologize to Amy, then leave." Enraged by Ethan's stance, my father-in-law lashed out, landing a punch squarely on Ethan's face. Shocked and struggling to comprehend the violence unfolding, I attempted to reason with my father-in-law. But he was beyond reason, relentlessly kicking Ethan as he lay on the ground. Desperate to intervene, I tried to restrain my father-in-law, but he shrugged me off, causing me to collide with the table, resulting in a painful impact to my head. As I touched the back of my head, I felt the warmth of blood trickling down my fingers. The other 3 family members, frozen in shock, watched as my father-in-law continued his rampage, demanding money and ransacking the room. In a moment of desperation, I opened the balcony window and cried out for help to the passersby below, screaming that I was in danger. Within minutes, the police arrived. Upon their arrival, my father-in-law swiftly changed his demeanor, feigning innocence and dismissing the chaos as a misunderstanding. He attempted to paint me as intoxicated and delusional, trying to downplay his violent outbursts with a disarming smile. I recounted to the officer, "Please apprehend this man. He assaulted both my husband and me, and he's been ransacking our home, demanding money." In response, my father-in-law vehemently denied the accusations and, with a burst of anger, punched a hole in the wall. Without hesitation, the officers arrested him on the spot. Subsequently, the other 3 family members were also taken in for questioning. It became apparent that my father-in-law would spend some time in jail. Thankfully, Ethan only sustained a minor injury, a cut and bruise on his cheek that healed quickly. However, the wound on the back of my head required 10 stitches, turning out to be more serious than initially thought. While I feel a pang of guilt for Ethan's injury, a sense of relief washes over me knowing that my in-laws have ceased their demands for money, possibly reflecting on their actions. As I later discovered, my father-in-law initially spoke highly of me, but my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's jealousy led them to manipulate him and my brother-in-law into treating me poorly. It's astounding how envy can alter one's behavior so drastically, leading to unforeseen consequences. It serves as a sobering reminder of the unpredictable nature of human emotions and the potential repercussions that follow. As anticipated, my in-laws faced financial ruin, their business collapsed, and their home was repossessed. Now they reside in a modest apartment, both nearing their 70s and struggling to secure employment. My brother-in-law, once privileged by his father's position, now languishes in a cycle of gambling at the casino, nearing 50 with no marketable skills. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law's attempts at job hunting are thwarted by her demanding demeanor, leaving her confined to their home. Following that turbulent incident, my father retired, prompting a decision for my parents and us to cohabit. Surprisingly, it was Ethan who proposed this arrangement out of concern for my parents' well-being in their twilight years. With my return to work, my parents graciously care for our son during the day, providing me with a sense of security in juggling childcare and my career. Surrounded by my beloved husband, caring parents, and our cherished son, life couldn't be more fulfilling. I am determined never to take this happiness for granted and to always remain grateful for the blessings bestowed upon us. My name is Amy Snyder, and I'm 27 years old. I reside with my father and mother. Our family has always stuck together as a trio since my early years. Growing up, I've always admired my dad. He's the epitome of hard work, running his own bustling business. Though his schedule keeps him away from home most of the time, whenever he finds a moment, he dedicates it to me. On his off days, he prioritizes spending time with me, proving himself to be an exceptional father. My mom, however, paints a different picture. As far back as I can recall, she has never been employed. While she tends to household matters, she's never lent support to my dad's business or pursued a career outside our home. Despite our comfortable lifestyle, with my mom often seen socializing and attending events, her lack of involvement in my life has left me feeling somewhat neglected. There were moments of profound loneliness, but my dad's unwavering presence always filled that void. He understood the indifference my mom held towards me and made it his mission to ensure I never felt neglected or alone. As I grew older, my mother's tendency to break promises became apparent. While my dad's commitments were steadfast, my mother's casual approach to promises left me disillusioned. I learned not to hold her pledges in high regard. Conversely, my dad's reliability and trustworthiness garnered my admiration. I even entertained thoughts of joining his company after graduating from university. Being the only child, I saw it as a way to honor my father's legacy and continue his work. Upon reaching my 20s, my father began imparting invaluable wisdom during our outings for drinks. Meanwhile, my mother's involvement in my life remained superficial. The only time she interjected was during my sophomore year of college when I expressed my desire to join my father's company. "Dad, I want to work at your company after graduation. I'm already preparing for it. I want to follow in your footsteps someday," I announced eagerly. "Amy, are you sure about that? A girl doesn't need to pursue such endeavors." My mother intervened, her words dripping with traditional expectations. "Why not? I want to work hard like Dad," I insisted. "A woman should find a good man and let her husband provide for her," she countered, echoing typical sentiments. Disheartened by her lack of understanding, I chose not to engage further. I refused to live a life tethered to someone else's ambitions, mirroring my mother's existence. I had always aspired to become an independent woman, determined to navigate through my college years on my own terms. After that pivotal moment, I dedicated myself to diligent study, paving the path to join my father's company immediately after graduation. Though my mother remained unconvinced, it seemed she eventually resigned herself to my decision. "If you choose to live this way, so be it. But remember, you'll bear the consequences of not heeding your mother's advice," she remarked resignedly. "If you're willing to accept that, then do as you please." So I followed her directive by stepping into my father's company, inadvertently widening the chasm between my mother and me. Conversely, my bond with my father deepened as we spent more time together. Reflecting on it now, I realized my mother wasn't pleased with the turn of events. Upon joining my father's company, he invested considerable effort in my training, which, unbeknownst to me, was driven by his declining health. It took him nearly half a year to acquaint me with the intricacies of the job before he collapsed at our workplace, swiftly whisked away to the hospital. Over the next 5 years, he valiantly battled his illness. "Emmy, how's the company faring without your dad?" my mother inquired, her concern veiled by skepticism. "It's challenging, but everyone's rallying behind me. Dad entrusted me with everything I need," I replied confidently. "Well, as long as that's the case, just ensure you don't leave the company to ruin as the second generation," she cautioned, her words tinged with apprehension. "You lack any genuine interest or affection for the company. You're merely preoccupied with others' perceptions," I retorted, disheartened by her lack of faith. During my father's illness, our disagreements were frequent. Despite his weakening state, he made sporadic visits to the company, emphasizing its significance. "These employees in this company are invaluable treasures to me, but I must relinquish my hold on them," he confessed, his voice laced with emotion. "Amy, I've witnessed your dedication over the years. I trust you to safeguard this place and everyone here. I don't know if I can emulate you, Dad, but I'll strive to uphold your legacy," I pledged solemnly. From that day forth, the mantle of leadership was bestowed upon me. With my father mostly confined to the hospital, my days were consumed with the company's affairs, leaving little time for homecomings. I prioritized visiting him regularly, carving out time amidst my busy schedule. My mother, on the other hand, fulfilled only the basic duties, such as delivering changes of clothes to him. Even that seemed to inconvenience her. I couldn't help but wonder about her feelings towards my father. Did she lack any sense of gratitude or compassion for his illness? The thought left me feeling sorry for him, recalling the sacrifices he made for me during my childhood, a time when my mother's affection remained elusive. Despite my exhaustion, I made a concerted effort to visit him as often as possible, a routine that persisted for about a year until he peacefully passed away in his sleep. Amidst the whirlwind of tasks that followed, I barely had a moment to grieve. My mother, oblivious to my emotional turmoil, expected me to handle everything from funeral arrangements to hospital paperwork. Realistically, I knew I couldn't rely on my mother, who had never ventured beyond the confines of our home. So I silently assumed responsibility for the myriad tasks. The day after the funeral, my mother broached the subject. "Amy, now that the funeral's over, you've settled down, haven't you?" she inquired. With a heavy heart, I accepted the reality of the situation. "Please leave this house. I've just inherited 200 million yen, so I have no use for you anymore." "Thank you," she declared, as though it were a mere formality. Her words stung, but I had anticipated them. Further discussion seemed futile. Did she truly believe that wealth could replace familial bonds and absolve her of responsibility? With a multitude of questions swirling in my mind, I made the decision to depart. The next day, I arranged for the sale of all belongings associated with me, leaving my mother utterly surprised at the speed of my departure. I had meticulously planned my departure, but I harbored a secret from my mother. Despite her claim of inheriting 200 million yen, my father had entrusted all financial matters to me, designating me as the sole inheritor. Not a single yen remained for my mother, a decision my father made adamantly while he was still in good health. Your mother lacks the understanding of money management or prudent spending. I want you to provide her with monthly household expenses, he instructed me. If she receives a lump sum, she's likely to squander it immediately. If she protests, refuse to give her a penny. Though my father's last words were spoken in jest, he handed me an SD card containing a video message addressed to my mother. While I never envisioned showing it to her, recent events suggested its necessity might arise sooner than later. After my departure, I anticipated my mother would reach out to me, but her summons came sooner than expected. Come home immediately, she demanded over the phone. I'm working, Mom. What's the matter? I replied, feeling a pang of annoyance. I just need to talk to you. Please come quickly, she insisted. With a sigh, I reluctantly headed back to our family home, clutching the SD card in my hand. As soon as my mother laid eyes on me, she launched into accusations. You absconded with all of your father's inheritance, didn't you? I knew something was amiss when you left so abruptly. Hand over your father's inheritance to me now, she demanded, her greed palpable. How selfish can you be? You can't even fulfill your duties as a mother, I retorted, my frustration simmering. In response, I silently extended the SD card to her. Confused, she inspected it. What's this? She queried. I suppose you don't even know how to watch this, I remarked, masking my disappointment. I retrieved my laptop, inserted the SD card, and played the video. On the screen, my father appeared, as vibrant as I remembered him. I couldn't help but wonder how my mother would react to this video letter. Silently, I exited the room, leaving her to watch it alone. I had never witnessed my mother defy my father before, but now, in the wake of his passing, would his words resonate with her? Upon returning to the room, I found my mother in tears, her emotions laid bare. I was taken aback, my mother, shedding tears over a video of my late father. I was intrigued by the contents of the video letter he had left for her, but hesitated to watch it myself. Consequently, I remained clueless about the cause of her tears. Mom, are you okay? I inquired, concern lacing my voice. Yes, I'll be fine. For now, I understand. I'll adhere to your father's wishes and entrust everything to you from now on. Please, go home for today. Call me once you've had time to gather yourself, she replied, her tone subdued. Sensing her desire for privacy, I left promptly, pondering over how my father had managed to silence my mother. Questions swirled in my mind as I made my way home. Nearly a month passed without any communication from my mother, prompting concern to gnaw at me. During my lunch break, I decided to pay a visit to my parents' house, hoping to check on her. However, she wasn't home. That evening, I returned once more, relieved to find the lights on. Sorry for dropping in unexpectedly. I came by this afternoon, but you weren't home, so I grew concerned. I explained upon seeing her. I'm sorry, I was out for my part-time job during the day, my mother explained upon my return. A part-time job? I echoed incredulously. My understanding of my mother painted her as someone vehemently opposed to work. How had it come to this? Didn't you watch that video? It was a video letter addressed to you. I retorted, baffled by her sudden change in behavior. You can take it home. You should watch it too. Hammy, can I watch it? I asked, extending the SD card to her. Very well, she acquiesced, passing it back to me. Feeling a twinge of apprehension, I returned to the office and settled at my father's desk. With a deep breath, I played the video. Honey, if you're watching this, it means you've not been able to communicate with Amy. First of all, thank you so much for helping me raise Amy until now. Without you, I don't think I could have managed the company while bringing up Amy. My father's voice resonated through the room. As his words continued, a sense of unease crept over me. Then he uttered something unexpected, something that shook me to my core. You've taken care of Amy, even though she is not your child, and I have nothing but gratitude for you. You've stood by my side for so many years, but as a result, you've given up on your dreams and have reached your age without earning your own living. For that, I take responsibility because I have allowed you to live a life of luxury. I'm sure you'll be in trouble when I'm gone. I'm not my mother's child, I blurted out, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. But then it clicked. Despite the lack of overt affection, She had cared for me every day, doing the bare minimum for a child who wasn't her own. Who was this person? I didn't register our marriage because you told me you felt bad for your sister, so I ended up supporting your living and didn't do anything else. I'm sorry, but once I'm gone, I worry about the rest of your life. There's no one to support you, and I've taken your life away. I sat in disbelief as my father spoke, his words flowing with unexpected clarity. It was all news to me, his concerns, his regrets, his hopes for our future. Throughout the night, I grappled with the weight of his revelations before confronting my mother the following day. Mom, I watched the video from Dad yesterday. You know it all now, I began, my voice tinged with a mixture of confusion and realization. I raised you because I was asked to. That's all, she confessed, her tone heavy with the weight of untold truths. What happened to my biological mother? I pressed, seeking clarity amidst the swirling chaos of newfound information. You were the child of my sister and your father, she explained somberly. My sister died right after giving birth to you, and I promised your distressed father that I would help raise Amy. I would become your mother. With her revelation, everything fell into place, even the parts I had previously only imagined. I learned of my mother's sacrifice, how she had set aside her own dreams to fulfill her promise to my father. I recalled how my mother used to work in a diner, her vibrant spirit and dedication palpable. Her dream had been to own her own diner, yet when she chose to become my mother, she shelved that dream. However, inspired by my father's words and prompted by the memory of her deferred dream, my mother made a decision. She resolved to reclaim that dream, embarking on a journey to pursue it once more. Currently, she is undergoing training as a part-timer, determined to turn her dream of owning a diner into reality. I should have done this earlier. Working is fun and suits me. I had no idea, so it's my fault you didn't work. I'm really sorry for not knowing anything, my mother admitted, her tone filled with regret. It's not your fault, Amy. I made the decision myself. But I'm not good with children, so I couldn't handle you well. I'm the one who caused you trouble, she continued, taking responsibility for her actions. As we conversed, I realized it was the first time we had such an open dialogue. At this stage in my life, I finally felt like I had come to understand my mother a bit better. Our conversations became more frequent, leading us to a decision: to use the money left by my father to fund the opening of her shop. Once she started working, my mother became somewhat more humble. She hesitated when the topic of funds for the shop came up, a behavior that would have been unimaginable not too long ago. While maintaining my regular job, I also assisted with the opening of her diner. This brought me into frequent contact with my mother, fostering a newfound relationship between us. Regarding living expenses, she insisted on managing them with her own income, refusing to accept help from my father's inheritance. Promise me that you'll tell me if you're struggling. After all, Dad trusted me to take care of you, I urged her. I'll be fine living on my own. It doesn't cost that much. But in terms of my diner's expenses, she trailed off, her determination evident. I'll be relying on you. Of course, I'm looking forward to it too, so do your best, my mother encouraged, her eyes filled with hope and anticipation. After many years, we finally became a real family, and now we are living harmoniously. She isn't my birth mother, and perhaps it was just the right time for me to learn this truth. Your diner is finally going to open tomorrow. Your dream is coming true, I remarked, filled with pride as I watched her dedication. Seeing you work so hard at that company reminded me of my own dreams when I was younger. I believe that's why I've made it this far. It's all thanks to you and your father. Thank you so much, Mom. I expressed my gratitude, feeling a deep sense of appreciation. Promise me to always be my mom, Amy, she implored, her voice filled with sincerity. From now on, let's get along even better than before. After all, we only have each other, I replied, feeling a newfound sense of closeness. Upon my father's death, the truth was revealed, and I accepted the reality of our situation. Deciding to live on with just my mother and me, I contemplated moving back to my hometown and living together with her again. I don't cook, so my mother is concerned about my poor diet and is supportive of me coming back, I explained, feeling touched by her care. My father would probably be surprised that we're getting along so well. His house, company, and inheritance that he left behind. I'll protect them at all costs while continuing to get along with my mother in order to become a real family, I vowed, determined to honor my father's legacy. We visited the graves of my father and my biological mother, my mother's older sister, to give our daily life updates. After going through the process of adoption, I finally became registered as my mother's daughter, forging a bond that transcended bloodlines.